quite happen there, and a little bit over a vertical. So you can see there the legs just flick past vertical here. So the judges will just take off for that a little bit.
Now completing the first round, our 9th diver, Jade Dockery from Green Bay High here in Auckland. Forward 1.5 somersault.
Nice dive from Jade. She was quite high in the air, so she'll get rewarded for that. Beautiful pike position, a little bit short of vertical on the entry, so not quite perpendicular, but you can hear some 7.5s coming through, so the judges were impressed. Look how high she goes. So she'll be pleased with that, Jade.
So we're now back to the second round, or the start of the second round, back with Riley McGee from Albany Junior High School. This is a backward somersault in the tuck position.
Yeah, so he started with the forward somersault. He's now done backward somersault, slightly far away from the board and a bit over a vertical, but a nice tuck position. And just kicking up a bit of splash there. It's quite hard to keep the splash down on the feet first dives sometimes.
And here we see our next competitor, Jimmy Lyons, making that adjustment that Liam was talking about before we started. They can adjust it to whatever degree of bend they want.
So that was one of our falling dives that I mentioned at the start. So no jump required in this dive. We're just pretty much looking at the form in the air and the entry, and beautiful line, just a bit short of vertical. So you'll see here, just not quite perpendicular, but everything else was pretty nice. So I think Jimmy should be relatively happy with that.
Now Charlotte O'Brien from Waikato Diocesan with a forward dive.
We've got the inward dive here. So there's different directions the divers can do. We haven't spoken about that yet. So this is rotating forwards, jumping backwards, known as inwards. And Ophi's done a brilliant job on that, getting some 7s and 7.5s. Beautiful dive.
Now Ophi Kernahan from Carmel, who completed a very good dive in the first round. Now with her second round, an inward dive in the tuck position. Degree of difficulty 1.4, so another difficult dive.
So another inward dive. So you can see the divers rotating forwards, jumping backwards. This time, Ophi was slightly too far away from the board, so that judges would take off a bit for that, but nice and perpendicular on the water. So here you can see Tweenie adjusting the fulcrum there. So as I said earlier, she's wheeling it backwards. It's going to make it a bit more bouncy. She's going to be doing an inward 1.5 somersaults pike. So it'll be the hardest dive we've seen so far.
Yeah, degree of difficulty here 2.1. First time we've seen a dive over the 2-point level.
Yeah,
wow.
She'll be pleased with that.
Crowd liked it, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. So you can see here a beautiful Koropico as she has her chest flat to her legs. You can see here, flat against the legs, toes nice and pointed. Nice and vertical on entry, just kicking up a tiny bit of splash. But she'll get 7s for that. She'll be very happy.
All that hard work paying off. Charlotte Wilson now.
So this will be our first twisting dive. So you'll see Charlotte do a twist in the air.
Degree of difficulty 2 again. Difficult dive that she's attempted.
She's nailed it as well. I think that's probably the best dive we've seen of the competition so far. So she goes up, half twist. So it's a back 1.5 somersaults with half a twist, and nailed the entry. In 7s and 8s, I think I heard from the judges.
No disrespect to our judges, Liam, but the crowds are a pretty good indicator of how good the dives are, aren't they? When the applause is high, you know, probably the score is going to be high.
That's exactly right. So we had Chelsea there doing a forward dive pike. The judges would have liked to see a tighter pike position, so the chest touching the legs. You can see there didn't quite get into a full pike. So that's why we're hearing the 5s, 5.5s. Just a bit too open.
Our second to last diver in the second round of 6 is Victoria Christensen from St. Dominic's.
So we'll see another inward dive pike here, this time off the 3 metre. Nice entry. Didn't go quite as high as some of the other girls have been going, so we won't see as high marks on this. And just the feet not quite pointed like the judges would like to see.
Now completing the lineup for the second round of dives. Ninth and final competitor here is Jade Dockery with an inward dive in the pike position, degree of difficulty 1.4.
Yeah, it's a beautiful dive from Jade. Nice and high, really good pike position, and nails the entry. A little bit far away from the board, so we might not see any 8s. But very nice from Jade. She'll be pleased with that. So this will be the first dive we've seen in the reverse direction. So Riley will be doing a reverse somersault. He's going to be rotating backwards and jumping forwards. So that can be quite scary for the divers to learn. Quite far away from the board on that. Can be quite scary for the divers to have to rotate back towards the board. But doing a pretty good job there, getting some 5s and 6s.
Jimmy. It's Riley McGee's third dive. Now Jimmy Lyons with a backward lineup.
So another of our falling dives, so no jump required, a back lineup straight. So the judges are looking for a nice straight position the whole time and a clean entry with no splash. Beautiful line, feet apart there a bit, just kicking up a little bit of splash.
On the 3 metre board is Charlotte O'Brien with a backward dive in the Koromiko in the tuck position.
Yes, a nice tuck position, just bending the back a bit as she came out of the tuck. So you'll see here, there's a good takeoff. Beautiful tuck, and then just bending the back a bit so it didn't quite keep the splash down. So the judges will take a little bit of marks off for that.
Ufi Kernahan, forward somersault.
Forward somersault tuck. She was nice and high, just landed slightly short of vertical. So see here, a little bit short of vertical, so 5.5, 6s instead of some of the 7s that we've seen from the others.
Tuini Allen here with a backward dive in the pike position.
Yeah, and she's having a great event. That's 3 out of 3 that she'll be pleased with. She's got beautiful form. You can see her nice pointed toes. And a beautiful entry. Some 8s from the judges. Very nice dive from Tweenie.
Now Charlotte Wilson wants to make an adjustment as well to the bounce of the board. She will be attempting a backward 1.5 somersault with a half twist in the free position. Inward 1.5 somersault. Charlotte Wilson. Over there on the 3 metre board.
So she'll be spinning forwards and jumping backwards, rotating back towards the board.
It's very complicated just listening to you describe the dive.
Oh,
but she did it well. Wow. What if it
I had the wrong thing on the paper. It was a backwards dive pike, but she nailed it.
Yes, if the crowd are the judges here, this is probably one of the best dives we've seen so far today.
Yeah, that was a great dive from Charlotte. Look at that toe point. Beautiful. Nails the entry. It's what we call a rip entry, where there's no splash. You sort of rip through the water. And yeah, the crowd liked that, didn't they?
Now let's see if Chelsea Lee can do something similar. An inward dive in the tuck position. Sorry, back dive here with the tuck position for Chelsea.
Yep, so another back dive. So Chelsea did it in the tuck position there, the Kotomiki position, whereas Charlotte was in the Korapiko position. Quite far back from the board, and you'll see here just over a vertical. See those feet just kick up and splash at the end.
With Victoria Christensen here with a back dive in the tuck position.
Back dive, tuck, and unfortunately just landing quite short of vertical there. So the judges want to see the diver landing perpendicular to the water. Just kicked the feet a bit too low and ran out of room. So you'll see here, just kicks the feet low. Wanted to kick them to the ceiling instead, and then would have been more perpendicular on the water.
This brings Jade Dockery to the 3-metre board for the last dive in round 3. Jade with a reverse dive in the pike position. Degree of difficulty 1.9. So it's a technically a very difficult dive, and she did it well.
Yeah, quite hard to, again, rotating backwards, jumping forwards. So the reverse dive, and way up in the air, Jade jumps very high. So you can see here, way up in the air, beautiful pike position, and just, unfortunately, not quite getting that entry, so kicking up some splash. So she did.
Yes, just a little shift off perpendicular just before her feet went into the water.
That's right, it's a game of inches as well.
Back to the top of the order again. Here is Riley McGee, start of the 4th round, his 4th dive, an inward somersault with a degree of difficulty of 1.6.
That's right, so Riley's shown us a somersault in all directions now. This is the inward somersault. Great tuck position. I think he'll be quite pleased with that. It's not easy to keep the splash down on a feet first entry.
Jimmy Lyons with the forward somersault, degree of difficulty 1.4.
Yeah, and that's a bit better from Jimmy. So this one he was having to jump up, and he did a much better job of that. Good tuck position, almost vertical on the entry, just kicking up a little bit of splash, getting some 5s. I think he'll be happy with that.
First girl onto the boards in round 4 is Charlotte O'Brien with a reverse dive in the tuck position. Degree of difficulty 1.8.
Yeah, so another reverse dive. So unfortunately, Charlotte just landed a little bit short of vertical. Not easy doing the reverse dive. It can be quite scary going back towards that board backwards. Beautiful line, so nice and tight in the air, just didn't quite land perpendicular.
Faye Kernahan now with a forward dive, degree of difficulty 1.4.
Yeah, and that's good from her. I'd say that's probably her best dive so far. I think we'll see some 6s here from the judges. Looks to me like maybe will have a gymnastics background. Nice entry there, just kicking up a tiny bit of splash, but fairly clean.
Tuini Ellen, who's hit 3 out of 3 so far in this competition. Here she is with a backward 1.5 somersault with half a twist in the free position.
Yeah,
wow.
That's a big dive. So we saw that earlier from Charlotte on 3 metre. This time Tweeny's doing it on 1 metre, which as you can imagine is much harder because there's a lot less room to fit it in. So going up, half twist, 1.5 somersaults, and just short of vertical, but pretty good dive there from Tweeny.
Charlotte Wilson next on the board, the 3 metre board, for a inward 1.5 somersault in this the piked position. Degree of difficulty,
And we'll see
2.1.
See how she responds. I think we've got a bit of a battle going between Tweeny and Charlotte at the moment. Yeah, and good. Just tipped it a little bit over a vertical at the very end, but much better pike position from Charlotte. And relatively high in the air. So you see there, she's way up in the air and just legs going over a vertical at the end there. So the judges will just take off getting 6s and maybe not 7s.
Chelsea Lee comes in for her fourth dive, an inward dive in the tuck position, degree of difficulty 1.3. She'll need to execute this well with a lower degree of difficulty.
Yeah, and does so. That was great from Chelsea. So again, lower degree of difficulty, but having to perform it well, getting some 6s, nice tuck position and a really good line on the water. So she was nice and perpendicular. See there, that's what the judges want to see. So that's a good front somersault that we've seen from Wikitoria. Slightly over a vertical, but nice and close to the board. So we've seen a couple that were going quite far away from the board. That one went straight up, which the judges want to see. You don't want to be too close, but that's about perfect distance there.
And completing the lineup for the 4th round, our 9th diver onto the board, 3 metres above the water. There's Jade Dockery from Green Bay High School, not so very far away from this venue. It's probably her local pool here. Attempting a backward 1.5 somersault in the pike position in a degree of difficulty 2.2. This is technically the most difficult dive that's been attempted by any of the 9 divers in this 4th round. Let's see how she fares. Jade Dockery, the backward 1.5 somersault.
Yeah, and almost, not quite at the end there, as you could probably see, just a bit shorter vertical, but was way up in the air, just spun a little bit too slow to get it all the way around. It's a big dive, so just not quite finishing the dive there. She probably wanted to hold on to that pike position for a little bit longer so that her feet were pointing towards the ceiling. So you'll see here they're just pointing a little bit too low, slightly shorter vertical.
So back to the top of the roster we go for the beginning of round 5. Each diver does 6 dives in this particular competition, boys and girls.
Yeah, and one of our bigger dives, so a forward double somersault that time from Riley. And he just managed to fit it all in. It's a lot to get in, so you can see here there's 1, 2, doesn't quite come out. So he was still sort of half in his tuck shape. So you can see here he wants to be straight by that point, so that's why he's getting some slightly lower marks than on his other dives.
So now that we're into the second to last round, the degree of difficulty tends to get a little higher, doesn't it, Liam, for a lot of these divers?
That's right. They're sort of into the competition now. They'll probably start to pull out their bigger tricks.
Jimmy Lyons from Westlake Boys High on Auckland's North Shore with a back dive straight off the board.
Yep, so he's got a nice straight position. The judges will like that. He was just a little bit shy of vertical, so you can see there just the legs not quite up, pointing towards the ceiling. So the judges will just take some marks off for that. So getting, I think, 5s I could hear from our announcer.
Now Charlotte O'Brien from the Waikato Diocesan with her forward 1.5 somersault.
She's done a great job of it. Unfortunately, she's just a little bit too far away from the end of the board. Everything else is nice. So you see here, beautiful tuck, great entry. So perhaps if she was a bit closer towards the board, we would have seen some 7s from the judges, but she'll be happy with that. So now we have Aofi doing, we haven't seen one of these yet, a falling dive again, but in the quarter pico position. So starting from a seated position, which is allowed in this event. And the judges want to see a nice tight pike position here, and then no splash there. She's done a pretty good job of it, picking a little bit of splash up.
The lowest degree of difficulty of any of the 9 dives in this 5th round, just a 1.0 for Aofi. Now to Eni Allen, one of the most impressive divers we've seen today, with a reverse 1.5 somersault and a half twist thrown in for good measure from the free position. Again, not a lot of time here to complete all of these difficulties.
Oh, that's a great dive from Tuini. So we've not seen that dive yet, so that's not easy to do. So reverse 1.5 somersaults and a half twist. And like you said, Brendan, not a lot of time either. So you see there, half twist, 1.5 somersaults, and she manages to sneak it in with a pretty good entry. And with that high degree of difficulty, 2.2, that'll probably pull her ahead. We'll see how Charlotte responds with a similar dive.
Yes, that 2.2, equally the highest degree of difficulty from any of the dives so far in this competition, in this 14 and under boys and girls. Now Charlotte Wilson with a backward 1.5 somersault. Getting just the right degree of bounce that she wants.
Oh, and a good response from Charlotte. So a back 1.5 with half twist. We saw her do this earlier on the 3 metre. This time she's doing it on the 1 metre, so less room to fit it all in. Getting 6s, which she'll be pleased with because it's not an easy dive. Half twist, 1.5 somersaults, slightly shy of vertical, but she managed to keep the splash down, which is impressive. Yep, so now we've got Chelsea doing a backwards falling.
Well, this is new as well, isn't it?
Correct. So this is a backwards lineup falling in the pike position. And a nice job there from Chelsea.
Yeah, neat and tidy, wasn't she?
Yeah, really good entry. Nice straight position on the entry. Just would have liked to see a tighter pike when starting. But getting 7s on that, she'll be really happy.
Second to last diver on the board to complete round 5 is Wikatoria Christensen with an inward somersault in the tuck position. Degree of difficulty just 1.6.
Yeah, so an inward somersault. Now, what we saw on the last round, unfortunately, Wikatoria entered the water with her arms above her head. On that one, you can see she tried to just sneak them under just before she landed, which she managed to do. There's a rule, we didn't discuss this, where if the diver lands feet first with their arms above their head, it's a maximum of 4.5 points. And she managed to get her hands down by her sides, so she didn't have to fall prey to that rule.
So Jade Dockery.
So another twisting dive. So we saw this, we've seen this a few times now. Back 1.5 somersaults with half twist.
Degree of difficulty higher as well at 2.0 from the 3 metre board. Jade Dockery from Green Bay High School. Wow, that looked nice.
She's nailed it.
Start to finish, didn't it?
Yeah, beautiful dive. Rip entry on the end, so that has a big say in the scores she'll get. She's gone way up in the air, so half twist, 1.5 somersaults, nails the entry, Some sevens there for Jade. She'll be very pleased with that.
I think she gets more height off the board than anyone else.
She's very powerful as Jade, yep.
She'll have one more opportunity. Here is Riley McGee with his 6th and final dive.
Big dive here, a backwards double somersault. We haven't seen this yet. 2 somersaults to fit in. And he's
nearly got there,
fitted
didn't
in.
he? Yeah.
That's a good effort from Riley. That's not easy. So, way up in the air. 1, 2. Unfortunately, didn't quite have enough room to get all the way out. But that's impressive, isn't it?
So this brings Jimmy Lyons to the 3-metre board for his 6th and final dive. Just a forward dive in the quarter pico or tuck position.
And I think Jimmy will be pleased with that to finish his list. Kept the splash relatively low. Slightly too far away from the end of the board. Feet just a little bit apart there, you can see. But fairly consistent over this event, which is one thing we always talk about in diving, that we want to be, is consistent.
Charlotte O'Brien on the 3-metre board from Waikato Diocesan with a backward somersault. Degree of difficulty 1.8.
So that was a dive in the straight position, which we haven't actually seen other than our lineup dives. Beautiful straight position. Judges will be impressed with that. Hard to keep the splash down on a feet first entry. But I quite like that dive. She did a good job of that.
Now, one of our leaders, Aofi Kernahan from Carmel College on the Auckland's North Shore with a backward lineup with a tuck position, degree of difficulty only 1.0, so she'll need to do this technically very correct to score well, and probably has.
And has, yeah. She didn't quite get that rip entry that we talk about with no splash, but a beautiful tuck position there, nice and tight. Kicks the legs out strong and relatively clean. Overall a good dive, scoring 6s there.
Now, Tuini Allen will be hoping to continue with this very good form that she's shown. Exquisite technical display so far from her 5 previous dives. This one a reverse 1.5 somersault with a half twist from the free position.
Yeah, nails it. What a great list from Tweenie. She's dived amazingly. So reverse 1.5 half. She did this in the last round off the 1 metre. This time off the 3 metre, so a bit more room to fit it in. Half twist. And you can see there, beautiful entry. Nice and straight. Judges will be pleased with that.
And that could be enough to give her victory in this particular competition. But Charlotte Wilson has also competed very well across the first 5. Now with a inward 1.5 somersault with tuck, 2.2, high degree of difficulty.
Needs a good one.
She can pull this off. She will really be snapping it to any Allen's heels.
And almost, I don't know if it's going to be quite enough. We'll have to wait and see the results at the end. She went way up in the air and spun very fast, doing what we call a pike out. So she's in a tuck there, straightens her legs, and then goes straight, but just unfortunately rolled it slightly over a vertical on the end. So she'll score maybe 5s and 6s. Will it be enough?
Just 3 dives left to complete this boys 14 and under and girls springboard competition. Chelsea Lee from Hamilton Christian with that forward 1.5 somersault.
So 1.5 somersaults, a lot to fit in, didn't quite fit it all in. so shy of vertical on the entry. So there's one, half, just didn't quite get all the way out to a straight position to be perpendicular on the entry. But a good effort.
And Victoria Christensen there with her forward 1.5 somersault in the tuck position. Degree of difficulty 1.6. Did a good job as well.
That's right, the same dive, and you can see managed to get all the way out to vertical on the entry. So we'll get slightly higher marks on that one and a good finish for Wikitoria. Nice and clean entry, good way to finish.
So now the last dive in the competition. Jade Dockery from Green Bay High with a reverse 1.5 somersault in the tuck position. Degree of difficulty 2. Yes.
Oh, great finish for Jade. Reverse 1.5 somersault. We haven't seen that yet. So the diver is jumping forwards, spinning backwards. So you can see here she starts to go backwards. 1.5 kick, beautiful kick. And nice and straight on the entry. So the judges will be impressed with how high she finished the dive. She's way up by the 5 metre. Kicks the legs out, grabs the hands, and she's nice and straight on the entry. Didn't quite keep the splash down, but everything else was brilliant.
So that is the completion of the first event this afternoon at the 2024 National Secondary and Intermediate Schools Diving Championships here at the Westwave Leisure Centre in Henderson in West Auckland. Next event will be the boys 15 to 16 with the girls as well. That's a springboard event for 15 and 16-year-olds while we just wait for the points to be tabulated from the first event this afternoon.
So while we wait, we're going to cut to a break. Don't go anywhere as we cut to the results.
Funding is a real challenge. We know that a lot of schools face that ongoing, and the reality is if you go to a lower decile school in New Zealand, you are less likely to be able to afford to participate in sport.
Obviously, having come through it myself with kids and being one of those kids myself who played sport, I know how much it defined who I was. And now being able to go, I can't fix it all, but we can help and try and give to those people who are going through really tough times. It's a real privilege, but you know, for us, we want to see others get involved with it. This is not a selfish thing for Apollo. This is about how can we get, whether it's construction or other businesses, to get involved in this.
There's a lot of things that kids miss out on, and so to have businesses step up and want to be involved and to help is a game changer for schools. It really is.
Hey, sport is about more than just a game. It's about going from teammates to best mates. It's the high fives and helping hands. It's learning when to back yourself or back your buddies. It's actually being excited to get out of bed early on a Saturday. Sport is about more than just the game. That's why Caltex is proud to help fuel school sports.
The forest should never have been taken off this steep hill country that's eroding, and it makes absolute sense to afforest those hills. What we're doing here is using the exotics to help that process get established. We're looking at a managed transition process where those pines are progressively thinned as the native understory establishes. We're trying to do several things here. Soak up carbon, establish native forest, and we're trying to improve biodiversity. You're achieving an awful lot with one program of activity.
This isn't about printing. It's about better results with over 90 offices right across the country in residential, commercial and rural.
Henderson Aquatic Centre no mai hoki mai here at the National Secondary Schools Diving Championships. We are awaiting the start of the boys 15 to 16 and girls 15 to 16 springboard, which will get underway. But first of all, we're just waiting on the final points from the first event of the afternoon, the boys and girls 14-year-old. Seventeen competitors lining up in the boys 15 and 16 and girls 15 and 16 springboard championship event being introduced to the crowd here at the moment.
Yes, so slightly older divers, so we'll see some slightly harder dives, I imagine, in this event. Some of these divers have competed nationally and even internationally. Others, this will be their biggest event they've done in their careers so far, so we'll have a good, well-rounded field.
Yes, you're right, Liam. I'm just looking through the dives that these competitors will be doing, and some of them are requiring degree of difficulties as high as 2.8, which is quite a bit higher than we've seen from the youngsters. There they will come.
That's right, so we'll see some 2.5 somersaults and some more complicated twisting dives, so it will be exciting.
Each competitor again will do 7 dives to complete this competition. The youngsters, the 14-year-olds, did just 6. Now they'll have their warm-up period before the competition gets underway in a few minutes.
Funding is a real challenge. We know that a lot of schools face that ongoing, and the reality is if you go to a lower decile school in New Zealand, you are less likely to be able to afford to participate in sport.
Obviously, having come through it myself with kids and being one of those kids myself who played sport, I know how much it defined who I was. And now being able to go, I can't fix it all, but we can help and try and give to those people who are going through a tough time. It's a real privilege, but you know, for us, we want to see others get involved in this. This is not a selfish thing for Apollo. This is about how can we get, whether it's construction or other businesses, to get involved in this.
There's a lot of things that kids miss out on, and so to have businesses step up and want to be involved and to help is a game changer for schools. It really is.
Hey, sport is about more than just a game. It's about going from teammates to best mates. It's the high fives and helping hands. It's learning when to back yourself or back your buddies. It's actually being excited to get out of bed early on a Saturday. Sport is about more than just the game. That's why Caltex is proud to help fuel school sports.
Forest should never have been taken off the steep hill country that's eroding, and it makes absolute sense to afforest those hills. What we're doing here is using the exotics to help that process get established. We're looking at a managed transition process where those pines are progressively thinned as the native understory establishes. We're trying to do several things here. Soak up carbon, establish native forest, and we're trying to improve biodiversity. You're achieving an awful lot with one program of activity.
This isn't about printing. It's about better results with over 90 offices right across the country in residential, commercial and rural.
So we're back and we're just waiting for the divers to finish their final warm-ups and preparations. You can see the start list there. We've got 17 divers. The divers will be in 2 separate events but diving at the same time. The boys and the girls 15 to 16 springboard event.
And while we have a moment, we can tell you that from the first event this afternoon, quite remarkable that it was a dead heat. Tie for first place between 2 very impressive performances from Charlotte Wilson and Tuini Allen from Kristen and Westwave Girls High, and they finished both with 246.75, so they could not be separated, even going to the 1/100th of a point.
Which is incredible. That hardly ever happens in diving, so that is quite amazing.
And they were well clear of Jade Dockery, who was in 3rd place, followed by Charlotte O'Brien, Chelsea Lee, Aofi Kernahan and Wikatori Christensen. And in the boys 14 and under, it was Riley McGee who finished just ahead of Jimmy Lyons. That's how it finished in the first event this afternoon as we prepare for a start in the second event. The boys 15 and 16-year-olds and the girls 15 and 16-year-olds as well.
And so the divers will be diving not only for their own individual national title, but depending on where they finish, they'll get points for their school for an overall winner. The winning school. So every place counts. They'll get points. The higher they finish, the more points they'll get for their school, and that goes across all events. So the 14 and unders, the 15 to 16s, and the 17 and overs. Across springboard and platform. We've got the springboard events today and the platform events tomorrow. So you can see the divers warming up. We've got some bigger dives in this event to look forward to. They're just doing their final preparations before the competition gets underway.
Yes, we'll be seeing more complicated dives, technically more complex dives coming from some of these divers. In fact, the first 2 divers we see in action here today, Kobe Fox from Rangatoto College and Ross Miller from Onslow College in Wellington, both have dives in excess of 2.2 for their opening dives. And later on, as I mentioned before, we will be seeing dives of upwards of 2.8.
Yes, so that's getting up there. Those dives are much harder, multiple somersaults. So we'll look forward to hopefully seeing a good display of some good diving.
I imagine for a lot of these kids, particularly at this age, Liam, finding the time to spend the hours that you need in the pool to perfect these very complex dives, as well as the demands of school, probably put an onus on their parents. A lot of early start.
That's right. Finishes. Yeah, it's like any sport. You've got to put the time in if you want to get the results, and these divers certainly do that. So, yeah, morning trainings, evening trainings, and like you say, they've got to fit in school around that as well. Some of these divers have been diving for longer than others. Some do it a little bit more competitively. There's a few divers in this field who are looking at going to the Junior World Championships later this year. So we do have a wide range in this event. But it's all about competing for their school today.
So Liam, tell me a wee bit about the standard of coaching in New Zealand. I know a lot of sports these days in this increasingly professional era bring in overseas coaches from many different foreign parts of the world. How is diving served for quality coaches here in New Zealand?
Yeah, well, it's certainly growing. We've got some international coaches who have come over from England, and they are doing a fantastic job at developing local coaches. So in terms of our depth of coaching, we're the strongest we've ever been in terms of diving, and there's constant development courses going on, and some coaches will learn from international coaches when they're overseas with their divers. And we're fortunate to have in Auckland, Steve Gladding, who's now the CEO of the club and mentoring all of our younger coaches. And we've got James Hardacre, one of our performance coaches based down in Wellington, and now New Zealand bred Cordelia Norris, who's our other performance coach at the senior level. And we've got other junior coaches coming through who are constantly rubbing shoulders. So I'd say it's really healthy for the future of coaching in New Zealand.
Now you are one of the country's leading divers. You only narrowly missed out on a spot at the Paris Olympics this year. So how are you served for coaching, or are you wrestling with the idea that you might have to go offshore if you really want to increase your standing internationally?
Yeah, well, that is a possibility. I mean, we look to do international training camps and things like that. I'm actually going away shortly for a training camp, and you know, being able to rub shoulders with other high standard divers is important as well. So yeah, you know, we're constantly looking at how we can up our game, and getting overseas with other athletes and other coaches and other facilities is you know, something we try and do as much as we can.
Yeah, I guess it's tough for a sport like diving, I suppose, to be able to financially bring to New Zealand big name coaches who can demand salaries far beyond, I suppose, what's available in New Zealand.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's like any sport, you know, the best will want to be paid what they deserve, and but you know, one thing that we're doing well in New Zealand is we've got a great plan for the future, and you know, targeting the Brisbane Olympics as a home games in 2032, and targeting, you know, talent, not only diving talent for that, but also coaching talent, and you know, having the likes of our performance coaches.
And here are the winners from that first event this afternoon, with Charlotte Wilson and Tuini Allen sharing first place with 246.75 points, and in third place there, Joe Dockery from Green Bay High School.
Again, incredible to have a tie for first. It just hardly ever happens. So pretty cool for those girls to share the gold medal.
Yes, well, I remember Charlotte Wilson with her last dive, and I was thinking, you know, as soon as she hit the water, I thought, yeah, she's kind of nailed this, but would it be enough just to get her ahead of Tuini Allen? Well, it wasn't quite enough.
No, just not enough. But that's Jade's last dive, reverse 1.5. That was a great finish for Jade, and a well-deserved bronze.
Yeah, she came in third place, well ahead of Charlotte O'Brien, who was fourth. Is it to your advantage, is it, that when you hit the water your body's dry?
Oh yeah, well that's a common question. So you'll see the divers are carrying around a little towel.
A little chamois, isn't it?
Yeah, we call it a chamois.
Yeah.
And you know, one reason for that is it keeps you warm, but we'll see more divers in this event doing multiple somersaults. So when you are in your tuck position and you're wanting to spin, if your legs are wet, you can slip out.
Okay.
So by keeping them dry, you have more grip on your skin, on your legs, and you're less likely to slip out of your tuck position. It's never pretty when that happens, as you can imagine.
Well, as I suppose when you look at the fact that those two divers in the previous event could not be separated even by 1/100th of a second after after 7 dives.
That's right.
6 dives, 1/10th of a second, 1/10th of a point can be the difference between first and second place.
That's right. I mean, it's a game of millimeters as well, in terms of, you know, you just don't quite come out the board in the right angle, or you enter the water at slightly the wrong angle, and it all adds up, like you say. And when it comes down so close to that, every single point, and like you say, half a point, it counts.
So we're assuming this is our first competitor, Kobe Fox from Rangitoto College, with his first dive, and it is an inward 1.5 somersault from the 1 metre board, but a high degree of difficulty, 2.4. He's got a lot to get through and won't have much time. You can see how close he is to the water. We'll need a good leap off the board, I imagine.
That's right.
The first consideration. How high can he go?
Yeah, and pretty good from Kobe. I mean, Kobe's a strong individual, and so he can jump very high. Slightly too far away from the board, so he wanted to be a bit closer to the board there, and that would have allowed him to fit it all in. He was a little bit short of vertical, but Kobe has an amazing pair of hands in terms of being able to get through the water with no splash, and you saw that just then, and we'll see that again in further rounds coming.
From Onslow College in Wellington, second diver in the first round is Ross Miller with a backward 1.5 somersault in the pike position. He too with a high degree of difficulty here for an opening dive, 2.2.
Yeah, and showing us how easy that was for him. He kicked his feet down towards the water and still went over a vertical. So he's way up in the air, very powerful is Ross. You can see there he's way up, great pike position, and just feet sailing over a vertical at the end. So good start from Ross.
This brings Jonathan Clark from Waitakere College with a forward dive.
Yeah, so Jonathan, forward dive, tuck, the Koromeki position. Another strong individual, so he's way up in the air. The judges will like that. Just kicking up a bit of splash, so the judges will take some points off for that. Getting 5s and 5.5s there for Jonathan.
Now from Elwoody Senior High School here on Auckland, Maya Ranby from the 3 metre board, a forward lineup and pike position, just about to flop off the board.
So starting from the seated position in the pike position, the Koro Pico, and unfortunately landing slightly short of vertical. So the goal in this is to land upright, perpendicular to the water with no splash. Beautiful pike position, just shy of vertical, needed to roll a little bit faster.
Beatrix Nicol from Barradine College in Auckland, a forward dive with 1 degree of difficulty.
So Beatrix, a forward dive pike, showed us a nice pike position. You'll see the leg line, nice pointed toes, straight legs. A little bit over a vertical, unfortunately. So the judges will deduct some points for that. So receiving 5s.
Now here's our second competitor from Waitakere College, Antonio Rind Rushton, with a forward 1.5 somersault.
Yeah, and a great pike position. The korapiko, the chest was on the knees. That's what we want to see. Nice pointed toes. Just unfortunately, actually twisting there, so you could see the legs actually went sideways. So the judges will take points off for that. Just here, sideways and a bit over. Just there on the entry.
Claudia Everson lining up for her first dive from Austin Girls School for Girls. A forward lineup in the pike position.
And a beautiful forward lineup. So a very simple dive, but she's executed it fantastically. A nice, getting some 8s. Nice rip entry, no splash there. Beautiful line. Look at that. Perfect splash. Perfect entry splash. Perfect entry rather.
She ripped it.
She did rip it. That's what we call a rip entry. The diver ripped through the water.
And now Lucia Luxton from St Hilda's Collegiate.
And another rip entry there, this time on a forward 1.5 somersaults pike. So a lot more complex. Going way up in the air. Look at that, way up in the air. 7.5, that's a great dive.
This brings Indy McCarthy from Takapuna Grammar, forward 1.5 somersault.
Yeah, so Indy very strong, goes way up in the air. The same dive that we saw in the previous diver, but this time off the 3 meter. Look how high she is, nice and vertical on the entry. A little bit of splash there, but pretty good from Indy.
Now to Marley Lovett from Western Springs College here in Auckland.
And another forward 1.5 pike. I think we'll see a lot of these. So Marley not jumping quite as high as Indy did. It's hard to compare because it's on the 1 meter, but a beautiful pike position. And nice and clean on the water, getting 7s and 7.5s. Marley will be pleased with that.
Jolan Rutsdorf from Melbourne Senior High School with a back dive in the tuck position. Degree of difficulty just 1.5.
Showing us her koromeke position. Slightly shy of vertical, unfortunately. She kicked out a little bit too low, so we want to see the diver see their tuck and then kicks the legs, and they were just a bit too low. Wanted to kick them up towards the ceiling.
This brings Erica Poltridge onto the 3 meter board for her first dive, a forward 1.5 somersault in the pike position. Degree of difficulty 1.7, 12th of our 17 divers.
And a great start from Erica. Front 1.5 pike, we've seen a few of those now. The judges will have some reference from the other divers, and still getting 7, so that's good. Nice and clean entry. Great start for Erica.
It's our third competitor from Waitakere College, well represented in this secondary school championship event. Now Pip Lee from St Cuthbert's College, also here in Auckland. Getting great height.
Yeah, great dive for Pip. She's very strong. She's a great diver. She's looking at competing at the Junior World Champs later this year. Way up in the air, beautiful pike position, and not quite nailing that entry, but a pretty good entry. So getting 7.5s. Pip will be happy with that.
Now from the 1 meter board comes Frida Comba from Barradine College, another Aucklander.
And another forward dive pike. So great entry there. The judges would have liked to have seen a tighter pike shape, so the chest touching the legs. You can see just doesn't quite touch the legs. But beautiful line, beautiful entry. 7s, she'll be happy with that.
Ariane Dawson from Rangitoto College.
And that's a great dive. Forward dive tuck. She's got a beautiful line, so you can see here she goes up, tuck, and then look at that strong kick, beautiful line, rip entry. Fantastic.
Now Riley Oxenham from Albany Senior High School, a forward 1.5 somersault, pike position, degree of difficulty 1.7.
Yeah, and a good start for Riley. She's a little bit far away from the end of the board, so she wanted to be closer to the board. She does go way up in there. She's very powerful, but just travelling a bit too far forward. So everything about it was great, but the judges won't quite reward her with the 8s just for the distance.
Now Lucy Neer, the 17th and final competitor in this Springboard Championship, and she's all the way from Wellington East Girls College, with a forward 1.5 somersault in the pike position.
And a great
that looked
start.
good.
Yeah, great start for Lucy. So the final diver of round 1, and maybe she'll be our leader.
Yeah.
So way up in the air, great line. Lucy's a great diver and showing off her skills.
Well, she's come a long way, all the way from Wellington. I think probably she's come further than anyone else to get to this pool to compete in these championships, and she's going to be right there in the reckoning on the basis of that first dive of hers. That completes the first of 7 dives.
So a great first round, setting the bar.
So straight into the second round we go, back with Kobe Fox, the top of the roster, with a forward 2.5 somersault. Now this has got a degree of difficulty of 2.6. 2.5 somersaults.
So after round 1, we have in the boys event, we've got Kobe, who is our leader, who's also our first diver. Kobe, then we've got Ross, and then Jonathan in third. And the girls, Riley is our leader, closely followed behind Marley and Lucy.
So here he is, our leader at the moment, Kobe Fox, with a forward 2.5 somersault.
And unfortunate for Kobe, I saw him do one in training and absolutely nailed it.
It was excellent, wasn't it, until he got into the water.
Yeah, he didn't quite land on the end of the board, so he didn't get much height that he needed. It's a lot to fit in, 2.5 somersaults pike. He has a beautiful pike position. His Koropico right there, 1, 2, just ran out of room, unfortunately.
Now, in second place is Ross Miller with his second dive with a degree of difficulty of 2.3, a reverse 1.5 somersault in the pike position.
Yeah, and good from Ross. Look how high he went. The judges will reward that. His knees were a little bit bent, unfortunately, in his pike, so the judges probably will take some points off of that. You can just see there, just subtle. Getting 5.5s and 6s.
I think you're a very tough judge, Liam. I think that looked pretty good to me. Anyway, he may well have done enough just to have edged ahead of Kobe Fox.
Yeah, well, he would have on that. Yeah, he'll be pleased with that.
Jonathan Clark with an inward dive in the tuck position with a degree of difficulty of 1.4.
Yeah, so Jonathan, good tuck position, just twisting and going over a vertical there. You can see his legs apart a little bit there. So the divers work hard on trying to keep their legs together, but it's not easy. So here we have Maya doing a backwards line-up in the straight position, so no jump required here. Just falling and slightly over a vertical, unfortunately. So good, nice straight position. The judges will like that. Unfortunately, going slightly over a vertical just there. So unfortunately the judges will deduct, so we can see some 4.5s. That straight position, the Torotika position. So Beatrix, forward dive tuck, done a nice job. She's relatively close to the board, nice and high. Good tuck position, slightly over a vertical, you can see there. Kicks up a bit of splash.
So now this brings Antonio Rind Rushton onto the board for a backward dive in the pike position, degree of difficulty 1.8.
Yeah, great dive. Showing how easy it is for her. So you'll see here way up in the air. Touching the toes, the judges want to see that. And lining it up. Not quite a rip entry, but relatively clean and perpendicular on the water.
Claudia Everson with a forward line-up. We saw her execute one of these from the 1 metre board first round. Did it very well and follows it up with an equally exquisite one.
Equally well. The judges will be very happy with that. I'd like to see some 8s and 9s. Perfect entry. Look at that. Nothing.
Yeah, wow, yeah. You thought she just dropped a 5-cent piece into the water there. There was such a little splash. Now, Indy McCarthy. Inwood 1.5 somersault.
Oh, sorry, that was Lucia. So a back dive pike.
Yeah.
Indy's coming up next. So Lucia done a great job of that actually. Touching the toes. Nice, clean entry. Getting some 7s there from the judges. She'll be very happy with that. It's a great dive.
Now we're with Indy McCarthy with a inward 1.5 somersault in the pike position, degree of difficulty 2.1 from the 3 metre board.
Yeah, and she'll be happy with that. That's a good dive for Indy. Again, going way up in the air, finishing it nice and high. Great. Koropico, relatively clean entry. That'll put her up in the standings.
Now here is Marley Lovett, who is in 3rd place at the moment, attempting an inward 1.5 somersault from the 3 metre board. Degree of difficulty 2.1. If she pulls this off, she might just get herself to the top of the points.
Yeah, and she has done as well. She'll be happy with that. Nice, beautiful pike position and kept it clean. She rolled it slightly, but she managed to keep the splash down. So still getting some 6.5s. That'll keep her in the fight.
Pride and joy of Western Springs College, Marley Lovett. Now, Jolyn Ratsdorf with a forward dive, degree of difficulty 1.3.
And a great dive for Yolan. So, forward dive pike, one of the more simple dives, but executing it well. Nice pike position. Look at this entry, nice and clean. Going slightly sideways and not quite as high, so that's why we're not hearing the 7s.
There's 2 of the judges you can see there to the right in the black and white uniforms, looking dutifully somber.
And And Monique Gladding on the left, British Olympian from 2012, so she knows what she's looking at.
So 2 judges on one side and 3 on the other.
That's correct, yeah, 5 in total. And Erica has done a back dive pike there relatively well. Just slightly shorter vertical, which means the splash kicks up a bit. It was a nice pike position.
This brings Pip Lee onto the board for an inward 1.5 somersault. Degree of difficulty 2.4.
Yeah, and she's done it well. She's so powerful, Pip. Look how high she goes. We'll see in the replay. And manages to sneak it in. She wanted to be a bit closer to the board. But still a clean entry, getting some 6s and 6.5s with that DD. That'll be enough to pull her up in the rankings, I imagine.
Frida Comba. Forward dive.
That's one of the better forward dives we've seen.
Great entry, wouldn't it?
Yeah, beautiful line. She's got a good pike position, so we'll see here nice pointed toes and straight legs, and then perfectly straight on the entry. Slightly, a little bit of splash, but a nice forward dive pike.
This is Ariane Dawson with the forward dive as well, a degree of difficulty 1.5 from the 3-meter board.
Yeah, and unfortunate she just landed shy of vertical, because everything else she did such a great job of. Look how good this pike position is. Her chest touches her legs. The judges will reward for that. Just didn't quite nail that entry, so but still getting some 6.5s, which is a good score.
We have 2 divers left in the second round, and they are in first and third place respectively. This is Riley Oxenham, who was leading after the first round, here attempting a forward 2.5 somersault with a degree of difficulty of 2.4.
Yeah, nailing it.
Yeah.
She's done a good job. I think she'll be happy with that.
Yeah, there was a lot she had to unpack, as they say.
That's right. It's a lot of dive. So you'll see in that pike position 1, 2.5, and keeps it down clean. She was a bit far away from the board, so the judges will take off points for that, but still getting some 6.5s, and I think I heard some 7s.
Here's Lucy Nair, who was very impressive with her first round diver, forward 1.5 somersault. Here she's attempting a back dive from the pike position, degree of difficulty of just 1.8. Currently in third position.
So a lower DD, but she'll be looking to nail the execution. And she does.
Yeah.
I think we might see some 8s here. Beautiful rip entry, great pike position, so up touching the toes. And look at that line on the water, that's fantastic.
Simple and supple.
That's right.
And that's how it finishes the second round of 7 in this 15 to 16-year-old springboard for boys and girls. And we can tell you just unofficially, we'll confirm them in a moment, that the girls, it is Riley Oxenham who's still in first place. Moving into second place is Pip Lee, and in third place is Marley Lovett. And the boys, slight change at the top. Ross Miller has overtaken Kobe Fox. They've swapped. Fox was leading at the end of the first round, but it's Ross Miller leading at the end of the second round. And in third place is Jonathan Clark. Now here is Kobe Fox with his third dive, trying to regain the lead with a backward 1.5 somersault with a degree of difficulty of 2.0.
Oh, there was a bit that went on there. So Kobe, he came out of his somersault a bit too early, but he managed to sneak it back in. So you'll see here, he comes into his tuck, kicks, realizes he kicked too low, arches it round, manages to keep it a clean entry, but you'll see here, he had a bit of a banana back there. So the judges will actually take some points off So getting some 5s. So will it be enough to claw ahead of Ross?
Well, this is Ross Miller's opponent.
And he's doing a back 1.5 with 1.5 twists. So this is the biggest twisting dive we've seen so far.
Chance to consolidate his lead at the top. If he can pull this off. Degree of difficulty, 2.4.
Yeah, good from Ross. Didn't quite nail that entry. He did all the aerial work fantastically. There's a lot going on here. So you'll see he comes out of the board. He does 1.5 twists, 1.5 somersaults. He just twisted on the water there a little bit. So some judges may take more points off than others for that, depending on if they saw it.
Now onto the board comes Jonathan Clark for his third round dive. This is a forward somersault.
Went way up in the air, did Jonathan. Almost too high because he went slightly over a vertical. He was nice and small in his tuck shape. Beautiful there. Just kicked a little bit too late, so went over a vertical. So
in third place in the boys section. Overwhelming majority of the 17 divers in this competition are girls, women, young women, and Maya Ranby is the first of those. Attempting here a forward dive with a degree of difficulty of 1.3. Maya Ranby from the Albany Senior High School on Auckland's North Shore.
And the forward dive pike, not quite as high in the air as some of the other divers we've seen. Relatively clean on the entry, so we get some 5s from the judges.
Now Beatrix Nicol from Barradine College in Auckland with an inward dive, 1.5 degree of difficulty.
So the inward dive pike, she had a nice pike position, came out a bit too soon, so landed short of vertical, unfortunately. So you see there, beautiful pike, but just didn't quite rotate enough. So Antonia doing a back 1.5 somersaults tuck. Not an easy dive, and just ran out of room, unfortunately. Didn't quite spin fast enough. So see there, she went way up in the air. That's good. Tuck position, kicked a bit too early, so just ran out of room, landing short of vertical.
Now our next diver is Claudia Everson, who's been simple and effective so far from her first two. Not sure whether she completely nailed that.
She has a great entry though, doesn't she? So she was slightly shy of vertical and a bit far away from the board, but no splash at all. So landing somewhere in the middle with some 5s.
And now this brings Lucia Luxton, a reverse dive, degree of difficulty 1.9.
And she's nailed it. Fantastic entry, rip entry, good aerial work, a bit far away from the board, so we won't see the 8s. But we will see some 7s. It's a great dive.
Indy McCarthy on the 3 metre board with a backward 1.5 somersault in the pike position, High degree of difficulty here, 2.2. Needs to execute this well to score heavily.
Yeah, good from Indy. So again, it's not an easy dive. A back 1.5 somersaults in the pike position, the korapiko position. So just a little bit shy of vertical, but all the aerial work was nice, so she'll get rewarded for that, deducted for the entry. Ended up with some 5.5s.
This brings Marley Lovett currently in 3rd place. It's very tight.
So another one of our twisting dives, a back 1.5 somersaults half twist. Would like to see Marley go a bit higher in the air, but good form with her legs. So because she didn't go quite as high, she just ran out of room to get that rip entry.
Now Jolyn Rutsdorf, only 3.10 points separating the top 3 in the girls section after 2 rounds. Marley, who we've just seen in 3rd place. Jolyn Rutsdorf, forward somersault.
She's done a great job of that. She's kept it nice and close to the board. She's landed nice and vertical. Her arms were down, which is what we want to see on a feet first entry. Getting some 6s, that's pretty good for a feet first entry dive. Those are not easy to do.
Erica Partridge with a backward 1.5 somersault from Waitakere College, probably here in a local home pool.
And a back 1.5 on 1 metre is a lot to fit in. Erica's done a good job of that. A little bit far away from the board, which meant she didn't get quite as high, so she ran out of room a bit. But she snuck it in, kept it pretty clean on the entry.
Now here's Pipoli, who's currently in 2nd place, attempting a backward 1.5 somersault, 2.3 degree of difficulty. Chance to perhaps get a share or overtake the leader.
So back 1.5 pike, this time on 1 metre, so even harder, less room to fit it in. Pip has done a good attempt there, unfortunately just running out of room. You can see there didn't quite have enough room to get vertical on the entry.
So has she done enough to stay in 2nd place? We'll find out shortly. Now Frida Komba, inward dive from the tuck position, degree of difficulty 1.4.
Pretty good dive there from Frida. A bit far away from the board, but a nice tuck position, good vertical line on the entry. Coach looks happy.
Ariane Dawson, forward 1.5 somersault, 1.5 degree.
Just came out a bit too late, so we'll see in the replay. She was good in the air, great tuck position, but just came out too late. So we'll see here, 1, and wants to come out now, but came out a bit too late, so went over on the entry.
Now here's our leader, Riley Oxenham, attempting here a back dive in the pike position, 1.6 degree of difficulty. This to retain the lead.
Simple, but she's nailed it. I think we might see some 7.5s and possibly some 8s from Riley on that. You see, she goes way up in there. She's very powerful. She goes way up, touches the toes, and look at this entry. No splash, that's great.
It could be enough to keep her ahead of the other 16 divers in this competition. Now Lucy Nair to complete the 3rd round I think she must be in 4th place. She was 3rd at the end of the first round, and here with an inward 1.5 somersault.
Yeah, and good. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. We'll find out shortly where the leaders stand. But very consistent diver is Lucy, and she'll be happy with that. She hasn't quite ripped the entry like she has on the last 2 dives, but everything else about it was good.
So to the 4th round of dives, and first up is the man in 2nd place, Kobe Fox from Rangitoto College, completing a forward 3.5 somersaults here. This is the first time we've seen 3.5 attempted today. Not surprisingly, he's from the 3-metre board in the tuck position.
Yeah, so a lot going on, as you can imagine. 3.5 somersaults.
He's getting his head sorted out here, remembering everything he's got to do in 2 seconds.
As you can imagine, a lot of the work, particularly in competition for divers, is just as much mental as it is physical. So,
and also stamina, I imagine, with 7 rounds and,
right.
and a long wait between each round. And so just while we're waiting for Kobe Fox, he's still in 2nd place. And Ross Miller still in 1st place from Kobe Fox. There's Kobe Fox on that 3-metre board, and in 3rd place Jonathan Clark. Very tight between these 3, only really 2 points separating the 3 of them. Riley,
Pipley and Lucy Neer tied for 2nd place.
Yeah, but here's Kobe Fox. Wow.
The crowd liked it.
Wow, yeah.
It's a big dive, so he'll get rewarded with his degree of difficulty. The judges aren't going to give massive marks only because he landed a bit short of vertical, as you can see there. He just ran out of room. But
what about the knees being separated as well?
Yeah, well, the judges can't really see that front because they're sat on the side. So
you get away with it.
You sort of get away with it, exactly. Yeah.
Now, Ross Miller, who's leading the competition by 11 points over the young lad who's just completed his 4th dive, Kobe Fox. So it's Miller and Fox. Ross Miller from Onslow College in Wellington.
As well as that, he goes a bit too far away from the board, so the judges will take some points off for that. And I think because he was so high, he just struggled to control it a little bit and went over a vertical in the entry. So a back line up from Jonathan, and he's done a great job of it. Stayed nice and straight, and he's kept the entry nice and clean. He's landed vertical on the water. That's actually not that easy to do, so he's done a great job there.
And this brings Maya Ranby onto the board, the 1-metre board for a forward somersault in the tuck position. Korameko, tuck position for Maya. Degree of difficulty 1.4. Outside the top 3 at the moment.
So this will be interesting. So she's done a great job. Unfortunately, she's actually twisted on the entry. And so that's why we're hearing those lower marks. So you can see there facing slightly sideways instead of facing forwards.
Beatrix Nicol with an inward dive, 1.3 degree of difficulty from the 3-metre board.
So an inward dive, tucked. Would have liked to have seen a bit more height, so jumping a bit higher. But a good tuck position. Nice line, just slightly over a vertical.
Well, one of her competitors liked it anyway. Claudia Everson giving her a good round of applause.
Some good camaraderie in this sport, which is nice to see. So that was a nice inward dive piked by Antonia there. I think we'll see some sixes probably from the judges. Great pike position, the Koropico position there. Beautiful toe point, nice entry.
Now here we are back with Claudia Everson, who does these very simple dives, but she does them with aplomb. Nothing complicated. This is a forward dive, just 1.4 degree of difficulty.
Yeah, and she's got beautiful lines, so not quite getting that same rip entry as the previous 3 dives she's done, but another good one.
And again, you'd hardly even know that her feet have gone through the water. It's like they're going just through air.
That's right, she's got a good set of hands, learning how to rip.
Now, Lucia Luxton with an inward 1.5 somersault, degree of difficulty 2.1.
So, inward 1.5, running out of room slightly to Lucy. I think she came out of her pike a little bit too early and therefore ran out of room slightly, unfortunately. Everything else was good. So just shy of vertical.
Indy McCarthy.
Great dive from Indy, a reverse 1.5 somersaults tuck, so spinning back towards the board, jumping forward, spinning backwards. And she's gone way up in the air again. Beautiful kick, nice and strong, landing vertical. A little bit of splash, but relatively nice. She'll be really happy with that. That's a great dive.
Now Marley Lovett, who started the competition well, I think led at the end of the first round, but has dropped out of the top 3 at the moment. With a backward 1.5 somersault, 2.2 degree of difficulty.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to get her back into the top 3. Good aerial work, nice pike, just kicked her feet a bit too low, so not quite landing upright on the entry. She was a bit short of vertical.
Now, Jolan Rutsdorf, forward 1.5 somersault with tuck, and off the 1 metre board with a degree of difficulty 1.6.
Yeah, and choosing to do it from the standing position rather than from an approach or a hurdle as we call it, but that's allowed. Running out of room slightly. It's not easy to do from standing, so you can see just didn't quite get her legs straight up towards the ceiling before she was in the water.
Yes, the water came up a bit too quickly. Now Erica Partridge.
Great dive from Erica. 2.5 tuck, that's not easy, there's a lot going on, and she managed to get it nice and vertical and pretty clean on the entry. Not seeing the 7s because it just finished quite low and there was a bit of splash, but she should be happy with that. I'm impressed with that. It's a pretty good dive.
Now Pip Lee is in 2nd place in the competition after a very good 3rd round dive. That was her 4th round and 1.5 somersault with 1 twist. Degree of difficulty 2.1.
Yes,
did she pull it off?
Another hard dive. You see that 1 twist there, and just short of vertical, so she didn't get her hand, she didn't get a rip entry, but the DD will look after it, so she'll still be in the fight.
Frida Comba with an inward dive, degree of difficulty 1.3, just outside the top 3. But that will help her.
Yeah, and a nice inward dive tuck. Good clean entry, a little bit far away from the board. Would have liked to see a bit more height, but getting some 6s and 7s, that's great from the judges.
Ariane Dawson attempting a forward 1.5 somersault, 1.7 degree of difficulty.
Yeah, and a good dive from Ariane. She has a great pike position. Look at this. Folded in half. Good clean entry. She twisted slightly, so that's unfortunate. That's why you're hearing the 4s from the judges, is because she twisted. So they'll have to penalise for that. Otherwise, it was a great dive. So now we have Riley doing a back 2.5 somersaults. So I don't think we've seen this yet.
Competition leader. Degree of difficulty 2.8, the most difficult dive that's been attempted by anyone today at these championships.
And you can see these dives are not easy. That's a big dive. Unfortunately, Riley didn't quite fit all the somersaults in. Something didn't quite go right on the takeoff. 1, 2, just landing short vertical, so didn't quite pay off, but well done to Riley. It's a good effort.
Now, Lucy Neer, who has been highly consistent with her dive so far, the first 3. This one a backward 1.5 somersault, 1.9 degree of difficulty. She's currently in second place, tied.
Yeah, and she's nailed that. I think that might be enough to bring her ahead of Riley. You can see there, she makes it look so easy and nails the entry.
Yes, she looked very relaxed and composed, didn't she?
That's right.
And nice clean entry into the water. And that may well have snapped that deadlock that she's in with Lucy in second place. Lucy, with Riley.
So we can see here.
And it is a new leader, I think, haven't we? Got Pip Lee has gone back into first place.
Right.
And Lucy Neer has moved into second place. And Riley Oxenham has slipped to third. In the men, it is still Ross Miller ahead of Kobe Fox, attempting his 5th round dive, which is an inward 2.5 somersault. High degree of difficulty here, 2.7. Big dive here for Kobe Fox.
Yeah, and almost pulling it off. It's just not quite enough to get some 7s. We may see some 6s. He kept the entry clean, but he wasn't vertical, so it's a good effort. I don't know if it's going to be enough to pull ahead of Ross. Will depend on how Ross goes on this dive.
Yeah, Ross Miller here is 15 points ahead. The Wellingtonian from Onslow College.
And he's doing the same dive that we just saw from Kobe.
Degree of difficulty 2.7 for this inward 2.5 somersault off the 3 metre board.
Almost. Close but no cigar. He did all the aerial work great. He had a great tuck position. You can see there, 1, 2, nice and easy for him, just came out a bit too late. So he rolled it over a vertical.
Now Jonathan Clark, who's in the 3rd place with his 5th round dive.
Yeah, nice dive from Jonathan.
Inward 2.5, sorry, a forward dive with the tuck position.
kept it nice and clean on entry, slightly over a vertical, but relatively good, getting some 5.5s and 6s from the judges. You'll be happy with that.
Maya Ranby completing her 5th round dive there, that inward dive.
The inward dive pike.
1.5 degree of difficulty.
Would have liked to see a slightly tighter pike shape, so the chest touching the knees. That would have got her around to vertical, instead of leaving it just slightly short of vertical.
This brings Beatrix Nicol onto the board, onto the 1 metre board, for a forward 1.5 somersault. Tuck position.
Yeah, and nice 1.5 there. We can see she wasn't quite on the end of the board, so she did a good job of it. Getting 6s and 5.5s. She should be pleased with that.
And her rivals there, watching from behind the platforms, gave her a good round of applause. And Antonia Rushton comes on now for a 1.5 somersault with tuck from the 3 metre board.
So in the inward direction, so somersaulting forwards, jumping backwards. And done a good job of it. So she was vertical on entry, didn't quite keep the splash down, but the judges will reward the fact that she was perpendicular. 5.5s and 6.5, that's pretty good scores there.
Claudia Everson now with a forward somersault, just 1.4 degree of difficulty.
And another great dive. She's been so consistent. Again, keeping the splash down even on the feet first entries. A little bit far away from the end of the board. So that would have maybe got her some 7s if she was a bit closer.
Lucia Luxton now with a forward 2.5 somersault. 2.4 degree of difficulty, one of the more difficult dives being attempted in this 5th round from the 3 metre board.
Not quite, so it's a tough dive to do, especially in the pike position, the korapiko. So you can see 1, 2, it just runs out of room, not able to stretch out into a straight position before entering the water.
Now this is Indy McCarthy with a 1.5 forward somersault in the 3 position, degree of difficulty 2.1.
Another twisting dive.
A lot of these dives in this 5th round are over 2.0 degree of difficulty, and here's another one.
Yeah, and she's been having a good event as well. Another consistent, solid dive. So way up in the air, 1 twist, landing, just kicking up a bit of splash, but again, solid. That's all we want.
So that'll probably move her up the points table.
I would imagine so.
And now Marley Lovett started really well.
Yeah, and that'll claw her back up a little bit. She had a bit of a miss last round, but she's done well to come back, not let that affect her on this round. Reverse 1.5 can be a bit scary sometimes, spinning back towards the board. She's done well to keep the splash down, twisting a little bit, so I don't know if the judges would have seen that. They don't get the replay like we do.
Jordan Rutsdorf.
So an inward dive pike. She kept it closer to the board this time, which is good. just letting it go a little bit over vertical. You can see the feet there just passed over vertical.
Now Erica Poltridge with a backward 1.5 somersault. Also a half twist in there before she enters the water. 2 degrees, 2.0 degree of difficulty. Again, this pool seems to be just a little too high, the water level.
That's right. She just needed half a metre more. She needed a 3.5 metre. Did good, again, good aerial work, just lining up a bit too early. So I think she, you know, as you can imagine, it's hard to tell where the water is when there's so many somersaults going on, and sometimes you can line up a bit in the wrong place.
Here's our leader, Pip Lee. Yeah.
Wow, that's great from Pip. So that will secure her lead in this round, I would imagine.
2.5 forward, 2.5 somersault.
She went, look how high she goes. She goes way up, 1, 2, finishing above the board, and this time she nailed the entry. So that's a great dive from Pip. She'll be pleased with that.
From start to finish, she ticked all the boxes there. Then, as Leanne Stone has just said, probably confirmed her place at the top of the points table. 4 dives left in this 5th round. One of them is from Frida Comba with a forward 1.5 somersault.
Oh, and that was such a good takeoff from Frida. She was way up in the air, nice and close to the board, such a small tuck position, just slightly shy of vertical, so that's why we're not seeing the 7s, but really impressed with that takeoff.
Ariane Dawson, inward dive, 1.4 degree.
Good from Ariana, a little bit over a vertical, but again, that Koropico is incredible. The chest touching the legs, nice line, just slightly over of perpendicular, you can see there, but she's nice and tight. So good technique.
Now we have 2 divers left to complete the 5th round, and they are locked in a titanic battle for 2nd place. Only 0.5 of a point separating Riley Oxenham, who's on the board now in 3rd place with that inward 1.5 somersault with 2.1 degree of difficulty.
Yeah, and good from Riley. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. It'll be interesting to see how Lucy goes. So it was a solid dive. She can do better.
Now here's Lucy Neer, the last diver to complete each round. She's in 2nd place, just 4 points behind Pip Lee, and she's attempting a reverse 1.5 somersault with tuck here, 2 degrees of difficulty.
And unfortunately, that's not going to be enough to pull ahead. She left the dive quite short of vertical and was a bit too far away from the board. So
look better in slow motion.
A good effort from Lucy. Again, solid, but in terms of being at the top of the rankings, I don't think that's going to be enough.
So we've completed 5 rounds of this competition. There's still 2 rounds left, 2 dives left for each of the 17 competitors. And we can tell you at the end of round 5, it is still Ross Miller who's leading the men's competition, or the boys, from Kobe Fox and Jonathan Clark. And this is Kobe Fox with his 6th round dive, which is a backward 1.5 somersault with 1.5 twists, 2.4 degrees of difficulty. If he can get through this well, he may well be back in front.
Yeah, he's behind, but it's certainly not over. And that will help. That was a great dive from Kobe. I think we'll see some 7s, and with that higher degree of difficulty, that's going to be tough for Ross to answer. Great entry there. Look at that, hardly any splash.
So this real struggle between Ross and Kobe Fox and Ross Miller. And now it's the turn of Ross Miller. He's got a 14 point lead over Fox at the moment, and he's attempting again the highest degree of difficulty we've seen from a diver today. 2.8 for this backward 2.5 somersault.
Big dive, high risk, high reward, so let's hope it pays off for Ross. Oh,
Nearly.
It's solid. It might be enough to keep him in the lead because of that high degree of difficulty. Getting 5s, 1, 2. He just kicked too low, so he needed to kick his feet sort of towards the ceiling as opposed to towards the wall. And he would have landed vertical instead of shorter vertical.
He had 14. Well, he has 14 points advantage. Now Jonathan Clark in third place.
And he's done a great job there. So a falling dive, so no jump required. Nice straight position and a beautiful entry. Getting some 8s. Well done, Jonathan.
Now we come to the first of the 14 girls in this 15 to 16-year-old competition, headed currently by Pipoli, who we'll see in probably 3 or 4 minutes. She's down towards the end of the roster. First of these 14 girls is Maya Ranby with an inward dive with a degree of difficulty of 1.4, and she's off the 3-meter board.
So it was good that, I think we saw Maya do this off the 1 meter, this time off the 3 meter. Would have liked to have seen a smaller pike shape. She lined up a little bit too early, but managed to sort of save it. So you'll see here, lined up and then realized needed to be a little bit lower, so had enough room to adjust and ended up relatively vertical, which was good.
Now Beatrice Nickel.
So front 1/2 pike, a great pike position, quad pico position. Just unfortunately a bit over a vertical. So that's going to kick up some splash, and that's why the judges will score a little bit lower than otherwise.
Now with a reverse dive in the tuck position with a degree of difficulty 1.6. This is Antonio Rushton.
Yeah, and almost. So great aerial work. She's gone pretty high here. Great kick there. Just didn't quite get her arms through on the end. So left it slightly short of vertical.
Now Claudia Everson with a back dive. Again, uncomplicated. No frills. But has a very high technical standard that she brings to all her dives. Let's see if she can continue with that admirable tray.
Yeah, and she's nailed the entry again. She's got an amazing entry. Back dive straight. Getting some 7.5s, even 8s. For the 9s, we would have wanted to see her go probably a bit higher. But that's a great dive.
Lucia Luxton now with a forward 1.5 somersault. There's a twist in there as well, and a degree of difficulty 2.1 from the 3-meter board.
Yeah, and she's nailed it. That's great. That'll help her case.
Every now and again you see a dive, don't you, Liam, where the diver seems to have plenty of time when they get to the water.
That's right.
This was one of them.
That's right. So finishing way up in the air at 3 meter gives them plenty of time to see where they are, figure out where they need to aim their hands, and then they're more likely to get a better entry. And Indy, another solid dive. She's been consistent. Slight twist on that, so I'm not sure if the judges will take off some points for that or not, depending on whether they saw it, but solid.
Now, Marley Lovett, who was in second place at the end of the first round, but has just fallen off the pace a little since then. But a well-executed dive here because of the degree of difficulty of 2.2, forward 2.5 somersault.
And she's pulled it off. Well done, Marley.
It might just get her back into the top 3.
That may well do. Yeah, not an easy dive. She's gone round, great tuck position. 1, 2, found vertical, kept the entry clean. Great dive, Marley.
Now, Jolan Ratsdorf, inward somersault, 1.6 degrees of difficulty.
So an inward somersault, landing feet first, which again is not easy to do. Somersaulting towards the board, managed to kick out straight and actually managed to keep the splash down, which is impressive. Would have wanted to see her jump a bit higher and make that tuck position, that Koromeki position, a bit smaller.
This is Erica Poltridge, inward 1.5 somersault.
Yeah, and she's done well there, Erica. She had her feet apart slightly, so it'll be interesting to see if the judges if they saw that or not. They don't get the replay like we do. But everything else about it was really solid.
Now here's her Pip Lee, who has increased her lead in the last round. Now leads by 10 points over Riley Oxenham. Inward 2.5 somersault, 2.7 degrees.
Oh, and she snuck it in. Well done, Pip. So that is certainly going to help her case for keeping the lead. It's not easy. 1, 2, back towards the board, and she just snuck it in. Managed to keep it clean. So 5.5, 6s, but with the higher degree of difficulty, that'll score quite big.
Might well have done enough to pip the rest of the field, but still one more dive left. It's not over yet. Now onto the board comes Frida Comber with a 1.5 forward somersault, degree of difficulty 1.6.
Yeah, and that's good.
Good entry.
Slightly shorter vertical, which, you know, would have liked to have seen more perpendicular. Might have kept the splash down, but everything else within the air was nice. Great pike position.
So Ariane Dawson with an inward 1.5 somersault, degree of difficulty 1.9 from the 3-meter board. Heels over the edge, just working on that rhythm. Yes. You like those good entries, don't you?
Yeah.
There, eh?
Yeah, that's the last thing you see, right? So that's going to have a big effect. Great tuck position. I mean, textbook. Slightly shorter vertical, so we would have liked to have seen her, you know, perpendicular, as I keep talking about, and that would have kept the splash down.
Here's our leader. Oh, sorry, in second place now behind Pip Lee, so she's going to need to execute this 1.5 inward somersault with a degree of difficulty 2.4. Do this well, Riley, and you could be back in the lead.
Oh, and she has done it well. I don't know if that's going to be enough because of Pip's fantastic dive just a few divers ago.
Well, she's also having to make up 10 points.
That's right. But she's kept herself in the hunt, so it'll all come down to the final round. Great dive, Riley.
Now the final dive in this 6th round is from Lucy Neer, who was in 3rd place. I think she's back in 4th place at the moment. So she's attempting a 1.5 inward somersault, 2.2 degrees.
Yeah, and much better. She had a bit of a miss last round, so she's done well to come back and nail that dive. Bit sideways and a bit short of vertical. You see there, legs flicking towards us. So that's why she's not getting the 7s like she has in some previous rounds. But good on her to come back.
So we're into the 7th and final round as our very good, competent scorers rush with the points tally, and Kobe Fox still in 2nd place, and his last dive will be, if I can just shuffle all my papers here, there it is there, yes, backward 2.5 somersault, 2.7 degrees of difficulty. Big one here for Kobe Fox. It comes down to one dive. Do this well, Kobe, and you could be Fox on the run here.
He went for broke, didn't he?
Yeah.
And didn't quite pay off, unfortunately, but well done. I think that's a relatively new dive for Kobe, so good on him for doing it in competition. Half twist, 2.5 somersaults is a lot to fit in, and he just ran out of room, unfortunately. But good event for Kobe. Some amazing stuff in there. Well done for taking the risk. Unfortunately, this time it just didn't quite pay off.
Yes, he was 8 points behind Ross Miller, and so it's taken some of the pressure off Ross Miller from Onslow College in Wellington. He will try to execute a 2.5 somersault here.
Big dive for Ross, reverse 2.5 somersault, so he's going to be spinning backwards, back towards the board. One of his harder dives.
2.8 degree of difficulty, lots of points up here for grab for Ross if he can do it.
Oh, and he snuck it in. We'll see on the replay, he wasn't too sure about where to kick out, so there's a lot going on here. He's way up in the air, 1, 2, he kicks his legs, but he's not too sure, so he doesn't quite straighten them out. So unfortunately, the judges will penalise quite heavily for that.
So it could be very close in the end between Kobe Fox of Rangatoto College and Ross Miller from Onslow College. Here's the diver in 3rd place. This is Jonathan Clark from Waitakere College.
Yeah, and a good way to finish for Jonathan. Nice strong kick out. You see here he's with his tuck, rolls and kicks, strong kick.
But he's too far behind Fox and Miller to change his position, but he will finish in 3rd place in the boys section.
And nice and consistent, so he should be pleased with his performance today.
So now we come to the girls. This competition is headed by Pip Lee, who is the 13th diver, so she still is 10 dives away. And 2nd place in the girls section is Riley Oxenham, and 3rd place is Marley Lovett. So it's 31 points separating those three. And that was Maya Ranby.
Maya's final dive, forward dive tuck. Good way to finish. She should be pleased with her performance today. She's shown us some good stuff. Nice straight line there, that's good. Well done, Maya.
Now Beatrice Nicol, her last dive will be a back dive in the tuck position, just 1.5 degree of difficulty.
Great way to finish for Beatrice. She has done a back dive tuck, done it quite well, kept the entry relatively clean. Good performance, solid diving. She should be happy with her performance today. Coach looked happy in the background there.
You're seeing those two judges there together. I presume they're not allowed to have any contact with each other, are they?
Oh, they'll talk a little bit, but in terms of determining their scores, no, they won't consolidate or console each other. So another feet first entry, a back somersault with half twist. And a nice way to finish for Antonia. She'll get some 5s for that.
Now, She might have the most colourful uniform here, or costume, but her dives are delightfully simple and she executes them superbly. Claudia Everson from Dyson School for Girls with a backward line up in the tuck position, just 1 degree of difficulty.
And a great way to finish. She's had a great event. She's had some nice consistent diving, some beautiful entries. Nice beautiful line, keeping the splash small. Well done, Claudia.
Lucia Luxton from St Hilda's Collegiate with a backward 1.5 somersault and a half twist. 0.2 degrees, 0.20 degree of difficulty.
Yeah, and a great way to finish. That's possibly Lucia's best dive of the day. Back 1.5 half, she'll get some 6.5s hopefully here. Only 5s, perhaps the judges would have wanted to see her to jump a bit higher. I thought they were a bit mean on that personally, but good event today, Lucia.
Now, Indy McCarthy is just outside the top 3. The forward 2.5 somersault.
Yeah, and almost, not quite, but you know, that's her hardest dive of the day. She's had a really solid performance. I think she should be really happy with how she's gone today. One way up in the air, just needed to come out a little bit later, and then she would have been upright instead of short or vertical.
Now, Marley Lovett comes to the board from Western Springs College here in Auckland, not so very far away, and she will attempt a backward 1.5 somersault with tuck position. She's in 3rd place, 17 points behind Riley Oxenham, so she'll need to do a superb job here to close that points gap. And nearly did it.
Almost.
Yeah.
Just a bit over a vertical. She was a bit far away from the board and leaning backwards a little bit. You see there travelling back towards us, and her feet just flicked towards us. So she wanted to kick her feet away from her a bit more and she would have been vertical. But well done, Marley. That's a great performance today. We'll see where she ends up very soon.
Now, Jolyn Ratsdorf from Albany Senior High School, inward dive, degree of difficulty 1.4, outside the top 3.
And a nice way for Yolan to finish. Unfortunately, the feet were apart there, so the judges will take some points off for that. But a nice clean entry. Good clean entry, nice and solid. Well done, Yolan, nice and consistent today.
Now, Erica Poltridge from Waitakere College.
Yeah, and that's a nice way for Erica to finish. One of her more simple dives, but executing it nicely. Reverse dive pike. Some 6s. Touching the toes. Good clean entry. Well done, Erica.
They've been well represented here. I think there's probably more divers from Waitakere College than any other school. Now, Pip Lee, who's our leader, got a handy 14-point lead over Riley Oxenham, who's yet to have her last dive. There's a backward 1.5 somersault.
Yeah, and with 1.5 twists, so a lot going on and higher degree of difficulty than what Riley has coming up. So she's had a great performance, showing off what she can do. Great diver, Pip. Well done. Slightly short of vertical there, but should be very pleased with her performance today.
Now,
so Frida from Barradine, back dive tuck, leaving it slightly short of vertical, but a good tuck position. Relatively new to the sport, so she should be pleased with how she's gone today.
Our third to last dive in this competition. 7th and final round dive here for Ariane Dawson from Rangatoto College. A back dive in the pike position, degree of difficulty 1.6.
Oh, and leaving her best till last. Wow. I think we might see some 8s here. Fantastic.
Now,
beautiful pike, beautiful entry. Great way to finish.
Now, what can Riley Oxenham do? She knows she's 14 pints behind Pip Lee with this reverse dive.
Oh, she's done it well, but I don't think it's going to be enough because of the degree of difficulty. But a good performance from Riley, well done. She's a good diver. She's shown off what she can do today.
And the final dive in this competition is from Lucy Nair from Wellington East Girls College. She's been around inside the top 4 for the whole competition, just outside the top 3 at the moment, just behind Marley Lovett. A backward 1.5 somersault.
And a great attempt from Lucy. She kicked her feet out slightly too early. I don't know if that's going to be enough. We'll have to await the results. Just leaving it shy of vertical. So it's going to be an exciting
so she
wait
was
for the results.
She was 31 points behind Pip Lee, who probably has secured first place, and Lucy Nair was behind Marley Lovett in third place and Riley Oxenham in second place. It was Pip, Riley and Marley at the end of round 6. We just await the final results, and that will complete the second event of the afternoon. We have one remaining event. It's the boys 17 and over and girls 17 and over springboard championships, and they will be doing 8 dives, one extra because of their seniority, but it's a fairly small field, just 5 competitors.
Funding is a real challenge. We know that a lot of schools face that ongoing, and the reality is if you go to a lower decile school in New Zealand, you are less likely to be able to afford to participate in sport.
Obviously, having come through it myself with kids and being one of those kids myself who played sport, I know how much it defined who I was. And now being able to go, I can't fix it all, but we can help and try and give to those people who are going through really tough times. It's a real privilege, but you know, for us, we want to see others get involved with it. This is not a selfish thing for Apollo. This is about how can we get, whether it's construction or other businesses, to get involved in this.
There's a lot of things that kids miss out on, and so to have businesses step up and want to be involved and to help is a game changer for schools. It really is.
Hey, sport is about more than just a game. It's about going from teammates to best mates. It's the high fives and helping hands. It's saluting when to back yourself or back your buddies. It's actually being excited to get out of bed early on a Saturday. Sport is about more than just the game. That's why Caltex is proud to help fuel school sports.
Forest should never have been taken off this steep hill country that's eroding, and it makes absolute sense to afforest those hills. What we're doing here is using the exotics to help that process get established. We're looking at a managed transition process where those pines are progressively thinned as the native understory establishes. We're trying to do several things here. Soak up carbon, establish native forest, and we're trying to improve biodiversity. You're achieving an awful lot with one program of activity.
This isn't about printing. It's about better results with over 90 offices right across the country in residential, commercial and rural.
No mai, hoki mai, and welcome back to the Henderson Aquatic Centre here in West Auckland. And the official results have just come through, and as we thought, Pip Lee of St Cuthbert's College here in Auckland has won the girls 15-16 springboard title with 289.5 points, and she in the end was 23 points ahead of Riley Oxenham from Albany Senior High School, and Indy McCarthy third with 247.55 from Takapuna Grammar School. They were followed by Marley Lovett in fourth place, Lucy Nair fifth, Lucia Luxton sixth, Erica Poltridge seventh, Antonia Ryan Rushton eighth, Frida Comber ninth, Ariane Dawson 10th, and Jolan Ratstoff, Beatrix Nicol, Claudia Everson and Maya Ranby completing the lineup. And the boys, it was Ross Miller, in the end a comfortable winner from Onslow College over Kobe Fox from Rangitoto College. Miller winning by a total of 27 points in the end, and Jonathan Clark back in third place from Waitakere College. That's how it finished in the National Secondary Schools 15 and 16 boys and girls springboard diving competition. We have one competition left, a year older, boys 17 and over and girls 17 and over. That'll be starting shortly, and there's only 5 competitors in each of these competitions, so we will get through 8 rounds, I imagine, a bit quicker than we've had for the second event today, which had 17 competitors. So we'll have a few thoughts from Liam Stone before we take a short break.
Yeah, well, it came right down to the wire, didn't it? And well done, Indy, for securing that bronze medal. And we will look forward to seeing the 17 and over competitors. We'll see some higher degree of difficulty dives again. And again, some of our divers in that event who are international competitors. So looking forward to seeing some good diving from those guys. Here they come. So the 17 and over boys and the 17 and over girls. Springboard event, and we'll have the platform events tomorrow. So make sure you tune in for the platform. We'll have some divers from the 10-metre event tomorrow. So Abraham Lee from Elam Christian College. Tanner Costin from Rutherford College. And in the girls we have Olivia Fox from Rangitoto College. Isla Sella from Diocesan. And Sophie Derbyshire from Scots College, Wellington. So the divers will do their final preparations, their final warm-ups, and we'll be back for the start of the event momentarily.
Funding is a real challenge. We know that a lot of schools face that ongoing, and the reality is if you go to a lower decile school in New Zealand, you are less likely to be able to afford to participate in sport.
Obviously, having come through it myself with kids and being one of those kids myself who played sport, I know how much it defined who I was. And now being able to go, I can't fix it all, but we can help and try and give to those people who are going through really tough times. It's a real privilege, but you know, for us, we want to see others get involved in this. This is not a selfish thing for Apollo. This is about how can we get, whether it's construction or other businesses, to get involved in this.
There's a lot of things that kids miss out on, and so to have businesses step up and want to be involved and to help is a game changer for schools. It really is.
Hey, sport is about more than just the game. It's about going from teammates to best mates. It's the high fives and helping hands. It's learning when to back yourself or back your buddies. It's actually being excited to get out of bed early on a Saturday. Sport is about more than just the game. That's why Caltex is proud to help fuel school sports.
Forest should never have been taken off this steep hill country that's eroding, and it makes absolute sense to afforest those hills. What we're doing here is using the exotics to help that process get established. We're looking at a managed transition process where those pines are progressively thinned as the native understory establishes. We're trying to do several things here. Soak up carbon, establish native forest, and we're trying to improve biodiversity. You're achieving an awful lot with one program of activity.
This isn't about printing. It's about better results with over 90 offices right across the country in residential, commercial and rural.
And so we have the results here of the boys 15 and 16 springboard event. In third place is Jonathan Clark from Waitakere College. And in second place was Kobe Fox from Rangitoto College. Had some great diving, doing some big dives in that event. Well done, Kobe. And our winner, congratulations to Ross Miller from Onslow College down in Wellington. Some fantastic dives today, well deserved winner. And that was a great event to watch between the three of those boys. Girls 15-16 springboard event. In 14th we had Maya Ranby from Albany Senior High School on 123.7 points. In 13th we had Claudia Everson from Diocesan School for Girls on 164.8 points. Less than a point ahead on 165.45 we had Beatrix Nicole from Barradine College. 169 points we had Yolan Rostov from Albany Senior High School. And 90.35 points we had Ariane Dawson from Rangitoto College. And just 0.45 ahead on 190.7 we had Frida Comba from Barradine College. And just 1 point ahead of Frida was Antonia Rind Rushton from Waitakere College on 191.7. In 7th place on 235.35 was Erica Poltridge from Waitakere College. And in 6th place on 237.05 was Lucia Luxton from St Hilda's College. And in 5th on 243.8 was Lucy Neer from Wellington East Girls College. Lucy had some great dives today. And in 4th was Marley Lovett from Western Springs College on 247.15. And just 0.4 ahead, which is nothing in diving. In third place on 247.55 was Indy McCarthy from Takapuna Grammar. Well done, Indy, securing the bronze medal. And in second place was Riley Oxenham on 266.3 from Albany Senior High School. Some good diving from Riley today. And our winner, who had some fantastic dives, finishing on a beautiful inward 2.5, was Pip Lee, 289.5. Running away with it in the end from St. Cuthbert's College. Well done, Pip. Great to see. Well done to all those divers. That was a really good event. It's great to see so many divers competing in secondary schools diving, and we wait now for the 17 and overs to finish their final preparations before we get underway momentarily.
Funding is a real challenge. We know that a lot of schools face that ongoing, and the reality is if you go to a lower decile school in New Zealand, you are less likely to be able to afford to participate in sport.
Obviously, having come through it myself with kids and being one of those kids myself who played sport, I know how much it defined who I was. And now being able to go, I can't fix it all, but we can help and try and give to those people who are going through really tough time. It's a real privilege, but you know, for us, we want to see others get involved in it. This is not a selfish thing for Apollo. This is about how can we get, whether it's construction or other businesses, to get involved in this.
There's a lot of things that kids miss out on, and so to have businesses step up and want to be involved and to help is a game changer for schools. It really is.
Hey, sport is about more than just the game. It's about going from teammates to best mates. It's the high fives and helping hands. It's learning when to back yourself or back your buddies. It's actually being excited to get out of bed early on a Saturday. Sport is about more than just the game. That's why Caltex is proud to help fuel school sports.
Forest should never have been taken off this steep hill country that's eroding, and it makes absolute sense to afforest those hills. What we're doing here is using the exotics to help that process get established. We're looking at a managed transition process where those pines are progressively thinned as the native understory establishes. We're trying to do several things here. Soak up carbon, establish native forest, and we're trying to improve biodiversity. You're achieving an awful lot with one program of activity.
This isn't about printing. It's about better results with over 90 offices right across the country in residential, commercial and rural.
It's amazing when you have your arms. Hi, welcome back to the Westwave Aquatic Centre here in West Auckland for the final event of this day, the first day of these New Zealand National Secondary and Intermediate School Championships. Our final event is the boys 17 and over springboard and girls 17 and over as well. Just 5 competitors in this particular event, and they will do 8 dives each, 8 rounds. And we'll be seeing some quite complicated and technically demanding dives as well. Some of them up to 2.7, 2.8.
Yeah, we will. We've got, you know, some of the older guys who are a bit stronger, they've been diving a bit longer, and they'll be doing some bigger dives. We'll see a few 2.5 somersault dives and a 3.5 somersault dive as well. So looking forward to seeing some of those higher DD dives.
Takes you back, I suppose, to when you were young and fearless off the 10-metre board, eh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I mean the New Zealand secondary schools event wasn't around when I was in school, but the Auckland one was, and I've always enjoyed competing. Well, in this format.
That's a positive sign, isn't it? That you now have national secondary school championships.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really encouraging to see how much the sport is growing and continues to grow. And you know, we were talking about the coaching depth earlier, but obviously the depth of diving is growing more and more as well, and we can see that by how many competitors were in that last event, and all the young ones coming through. So it's really encouraging to see.
Is there such a thing, Liam, as a professional diving circuit?
Yeah, there is. I mean, yes and no. I mean, I'm on that circuit, but I'm certainly not professional. I'm self-funded, and that's the biggest struggle of the whole thing is figuring out how to finance the whole project.
So what sort of prize money can the top divers earn? Yeah,
like you know, winning the world champs is a $20,000 prize money pot, but that's you know, relative to other sports.
Yes, small potatoes, really.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's the scene here at this pool, the diving pool, which I think first came into prominence internationally at the 1990 Commonwealth Games.
That's right.
A long time ago. And it stood the test of time well. So we're just waiting for our first competitor, who will be Abraham Lee from the Elm Christian College in Auckland.
And we'll have a senior international event here end of January next year, a Grand Prix as they call it. So that will be exciting to see some of the senior divers from around the world come down to Westwave.
You get a wild card, do you?
Yeah, and I'll be in that. Yep. So I'll be competing there, and so will the rest of the senior squad who trains here along with me. So we're looking forward to that.
We'll go easy on you, Liam, if you miss some of those entries.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, he nearly made it. Oh my goodness, he did a great job.
Short but no cigar.
Yeah. So the judges are in place, looking very comfortable after a fairly demanding day on their mental skills as well.
Yeah, and it's not easy being a judge. I mean, as you can imagine, there's pressure on that diving board, but there's equally pressure in the judge's seat, because if you get it wrong, you don't look too good. So they go through a lot of training on how to judge the dive correctly and how to judge it. I mean, they don't get the replay like we do, so they just get one chance to see it.
Here's Abraham Lee using that chamois just to dry off any excess water on his body for his first of 8 dives. This will be a forward 2.5 somersault. So he's starting with a pretty tough dive. Degree of difficulty 2.4 from the 3-metre board. Forward 2.5 somersault, or 2 somersaults, should use the plural, I suppose, if he's doing more than one.
That's right.
Here he goes.
And a good start from Abraham, setting the bar. So this is an exciting event. We should see some good diving, and Abraham's nailed that 8s already. So great pike position, nailed that entry, and he was way up in the air. So the judges have rewarded him.
The rewards of getting plenty of height off the board, enabling him to complete those 2.5 somersaults and clean entry into the water. Here's Tanner Costin from Rutherford College here in West Auckland, an inward 1.5 somersault.
Yeah, and a good start for Tanner. I mean, he's so powerful. You know, you'll see in the replay how high he went. Ran out of room a little bit, but judges will reward that height, and he kept the entry clean. So that's a good start for Tanner. He'll be pleased with that.
Now this is Olivia Fox from Rangitoto College. No relation, I'm told, to Kobe Fox, who we saw in the previous event, also from Rangitoto College, but Olivia here attempting a forward 2.5 somersault in the pike position, and also 2.4 degrees of difficulty.
Oh, and good start for Olivia as well. So this is looking like it could be an exciting event.
Yes, just that extra year or two of experience from these youngsters.
That's right, 7.5s for Olivia, so great start, setting the bar high.
Now, Isla Seller from Dyson, forward 1.5 somersaults, only degree of 0.6.
And another good start.
Yeah.
So Isla, just the 1.5 somersault there, but executing it fantastically. Great entry. So good pike, and look at this entry, nice and clean. So
And sorry, Liam, completing the lineup with the fifth and final dive from this first round. This is Sophie Derbyshire from Scots College in Wellington. Backward 1.5 somersault with a twist and the free position. 2.0 degree of difficulty.
and that was a great first round. All 5 divers nailing their dives.
So who's leading?
Well, let's wait and see. I mean, I think Abraham's was probably the best of the lot, but
Yeah.
there's an 8 there, a couple of 7s, so great from Sophie. He trains down in Wellington, as you said, from Scots College, so...
And here is Abraham Lee with his second dive. Started the second round. Forward 2.5 somersault in the pike position. Again, high degree of difficulty. He's gone up an inch or two here, or 2.6.
So he'll be doing the same dive, but this time from the 1 metre, so less room to fit everything in.
And I'm pleased to say, Liam, that you've lived up to your reputation as one of the world's leading diving commentators. It is Abraham Lee that is leading, 5 points clear of Tanner Costin. And Olivia Fox is leading the girls section, or the young women's, I suppose, at 17 years of age. And anyway, here's Abraham with his second dive.
Oh, and he's nailed that one as well. Well done, Abraham. I wasn't sure what was going to happen there. I saw him in training, and I know how well he can do it. I train with Abraham quite regularly, so look at that tight pike, that Korapiko position, and nailing the entry. He'll get rewarded very well for that. So far, 2 out of 2 for Abraham. Let's see what Tanner can do.
He was 4.5 points behind at the end of the first round, and he's attempting here an inward 2.5 somersault with tuck and degree of difficulty 2.7, slightly more difficult dive than the one we've just seen from his rival.
Oh, and good from Tanner. Relatively new dive, I believe. So I think he'll be happy with that. It's not an easy dive. 2.5 somersaults in the inward direction, spinning back towards the board. Just slightly over a vertical, but getting 5.5, so I think Tanner will be happy with that.
Olivia Fox, who's leading the girls section by 6 points, got 48 points for her first dive. A forward 2.5 somersault here. She's attempting 1.5 back somersaults. Degree of difficulty 2.2. Coming off the 3 metre board.
And unfortunately she's
just lost it a bit, didn't she?
Washed it way over there. She had an amazing takeoff. She needed to do 2.5 somersaults. So she's way up in the air, just kicked out way too late. So She was quite far a vertical.
So this has opened it up for the remaining two young women in this particular age group. Isla Seller, who's on the 3 metre board at the moment, and Sophie Derbyshire, who will follow Isla. Isla here with a forward 1.5 somersault, pike position, 1.6 degree of difficulty.
And so a solid dive from Isla. She's a nice and consistent diver, so let's hope she can keep that trend going today. 5.5s and 6s, fairly solid entry. She'll be happy with that.
Now, Sophie Derbyshire with 1.5 somersaults and in the pike position, doing in the backward position as well. 2.2 degree of difficulty. Chance to close the gap on the leader.
Oh, and she's done similar to what Olivia did, not quite as far over, but again, a great takeoff, just kicking out in the wrong position. Needed to kick out sort of now, but happened a bit too late, and you can see washing over there, creating a bit of a wave.
So we're back with Abraham Lee, who's on the 3 metre board for his third dive, a backward 2.5 somersault in the tuck position. Now 2.8 degrees, that's as high as we've seen from anyone today, 2.8, but technically he looks such a sound diver that you'd think he may well be able to pull this off. He's now got a 13-point lead over Tanner Costin.
Yeah, very talented diver is Abraham. So we'll see what he can do here on his back 2.5. Yeah, it's solid, but, you know, I think by his standards, he could have done that a little bit better, but, I mean, he spins so fast. He actually does this dive off 1 metre, which we're going to see next round, and just finishing so high that he went a little bit over a vertical, so solid points.
So this brings Tanner Costin onto the board for a forward 2.5 somersault in the pike position. Degree of difficulty 2.6. Can he close the gap here?
Yeah, he'll be happy with that. I mean, it's a lot of dive to fit in. He was quite far away from the board, as you can see him swimming back there. He goes way up in the air, that Koropika position. 1, 2, ran out of room slightly. So he gets sort of 5s from the judges. Keeping in the hunt.
Now the first of the girls, Olivia Fox, with her third dive, 2.3 degree of difficulty for this 1.5 somersault in the back position, off the 1 metre board.
Yeah, and that's much better from Olivia. So the same dive, this time on the 1 metre, and this time she nailed it. So way up in the air, great pike, kicking out and nailing that entry really. So sort of 6.5, 7s, well done Olivia.
And she will probably still be in the lead, but Isla Seller here with her third dive of 8, backward 1.5 somersaults from the 3 metre board with a degree of difficulty of 2.0.
Yeah, and a great dive for Isla. She goes way up in the air, nice technical display of her twists. So you'll see here she goes up, then twists, then pikes, and she's nice and vertical on the water. A little bit splashy, but solid from Isla.
Isla Seller.
And so now we've got Sophie, originally from Dunedin, now based in Wellington. Inward 1.5 pike.
In second place at the moment.
Oh, and she's nailed that one. So that'll be interesting to see whether it gets her up ahead of Olivia or not. Getting some 8.5s, that's massive.
Yeah, well, she was 4 points behind, just under 4 points behind after 2 rounds. May well have closed that gap on Olivia Fox as we go back to Abraham Lee.
Oh, and it's so tight, isn't it?
Now it's less than a point between Olivia Fox and Sophie Derbyshire, and Isla Sella back in 3rd place. And for the men, Abraham Lee with a big lead after just 3 rounds.
So now we have Abraham doing a back 2.5 somersault on 1 metre. So this will be a 3.0 DD, the highest DD we've seen all day.
Yeah, first time someone's attempted something with a degree of difficulty of 3. Wow.
Oh, and just not quite. He spins so fast, doesn't he? So, and you need to get 2.5 somersaults in.
Did he need a bit more?
1 metre. He just needed to kick up higher. So 1, 2 kicks too early. So his feet were pointing towards the wall behind the board instead of up towards the ceiling.
Didn't miss by much though. So now Tanner Costin, 23 points behind, so he could close the gap here.
Big dive here for Tanner.
2.8 for this forward 3.5 somersaults off the 3 metre board.
Oh, and he's nailed it! Gosh, that might get him up back towards Abraham. He'll be absolutely wrapped with that one. 1, 2, 3. Look at this entry.
Yeah.
Gosh. So you might hear over the announcement 6s and 5.5s, thinking why wasn't it higher? It was a bit far away from the board and actually a little bit sideways. So that's probably why the judges, I think they're a bit mean personally, but that's probably why they didn't score at the 7s and 8s.
Olivia Fox with her 4th round dive, backward 2.5 somersault in the tuck position. This is a tough one as well, 2.8 degree of difficulty. A lot to get through here for young Olivia from Rangitoto College. Currently leading, but only by less than a point.
Yeah, good from Olivia. That's a hard dive. That's one of her hardest dives she does. And that's solid. She hasn't quite nailed it, but she'll be pleased. Good takeoff. 1, 2, just kicks a bit too late, so she's over a vertical, kicking up a big splash. But she'll be pleased to have done that.
So now Isla Sella, who's 18 points behind Olivia Fox in 3rd place.
And a great dive from Isla. She's just steady and nice and consistent. Great entry there, a bit far away from the board. But 6.5s. She should be pleased with that. That's another solid one. She'll just keep ticking along.
Okay. Into the last dive of round 4 from Sophie Derbyshire, currently in 2nd place with only a whisker, only a half a point behind Olivia Fox. Trying a forward 2.5 somersault.
Oh, and that'll be enough to take the lead, that's for sure. So a lower degree of difficulty, but she nailed it. So she'll get rewarded. 7s and 7.5s coming through. So she's way up in the air. 1, 2 finishes with so much time to spare that she has time to sort of line up, see where she's at, grab her hands and nail that entry.
Every box ticked there for Sophie Derbyshire. Well, we're halfway through this competition. Is it a good thing, or is it are you a bit too rushed when there's only 5 or 6 in the field?
Yeah, you can be, and it's a different mental game when you're having to be so rushed compared to when you're having to sort of wait around and, you know, maybe sit down and calm yourself down. But they trained for this and would have prepared for how big the competition was going to be.
So Abraham Lee with a comfortable 15-point lead over his nearest opponent, Tanner Costin, attempting here a couple of somersaults in there somewhere, but he got to the water a little quicker than he wanted to, I think.
Yeah, not quite for Abraham there. He needed to be on 1 metre. He kicked way too late, so you'll see he spins so fast. Look, 1, 2, and he's finished already. And he needed to kick much earlier so that he would have landed vertical. He landed way over a vertical on that, so he's all right. He's smiling. He'll concentrate on the next dive.
Chance now for Tanner Costin with a backward 1.5 somersault. Degree of difficulty just 2.3.
Oh, but good. I mean, the door opened there from Abraham, so Tanner
has come in.
Yeah, he took the opportunity, so it'll be interesting to see how close he is now. Nice and vertical, 6s, 6.5s. Very solid for Tanner, he'll be happy with that.
Now, Olivia Fox, who was leading the competition, who is now in second place behind Sophie Derbyshire, here attempting an inward 1.5 somersault, degree of difficulty 2.1 from the 3 metre board.
Yeah, and that's better from Olivia. Slightly over a vertical. I'm being a bit picky now, but that's why she's not going to get the 7s and 8s. So you'll see a great pike position, just doesn't quite nail that entry.
Now it's the turn of Isla Sella in round 5, her 5th dive, 1.5 somersault with a half a twist, degree of difficulty 2.1 from the 1 metre board.
Yeah, and good from Isla. That's tough off 1 metre. There's not a lot of room to fit all that in, so she's done well there. She'll get 5s. You could see in the background one of the teammates splashing the water. That's because sometimes when the water goes too still, you can't see where the surface is. So if you splash it, then it's easier to see where you are in space and where the water is.
So now Sophie Derbyshire, who's leading the girls section here, attempting 2.5 back somersaults in the tuck position, 2.8. The big dive here for Sophie.
Yeah, and solid. That'll probably keep her in the lead, I would imagine.
Yeah, she only had less than a 1-point lead over Olivia Fox, but she'll
get 5.5s. She's just shy of vertical on the entry, just ran out of room, but a solid dive keeps the pressure on.
So we're back with Abraham Lee. Yes, it seems that you hardly have time to shimmy yourself down when you're back on the board again. This for his 6th dive. This is 3 metre baby again, reverse 2.5 somersaults. What he's going to attempt here in the tuck position from the 1 metre board. And he's actually fallen back into second place after he didn't really pull off that 5th round dive that particularly well. And now he's only less than 2 points behind Tanner Costin. So here he is with a really difficult dive, 3.0.
Yeah, and this is tough. 2.5 somersaults reverse, so jumping forward, spinning backwards towards the board, and just 1 metre to complete it all.
Well, this is what he...
Oh, and it's better than those previous round, so he'll be happy about that. And it's a higher degree of difficulty, but a bit far away from the board and not quite stretching out. So there he's still legs bent. Didn't quite get his arms into a proper entry position, so he's going to get 4s from the judges. So the door is actually
opened again, isn't it?
Pretty wide open for Tanner.
He's got just this tiny lead of 10 points. We can build on it here now. Backward 2.5 somersault. 2.8. Ooh, no.
He hasn't quite converted on that opportunity, so it's going to get interesting. He needed to be spinning a little bit faster. You can see there, 1, 2, and he just ran out of room. So he was short of vertical. It was a solid attempt from Tanner. Relatively new dive, I believe. Technically okay, just ran out of room a bit.
So we come to the girls section now, and Olivia Fox with an inward 1.5 somersault in the pike position, 2.4. She is currently just a few points behind Sophie Derbyshire in second place. Can close the gap here.
So that's solid. It's going to take a good dive from Sophie, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. 7s, so she'll be happy about that. Nice, clean entry. So a solid dive from Olivia, she'll be happy.
Isla Sella, backward 1.5 somersault from the 3-metre board, degree of difficulty 2.4. Currently in second place behind Sophie Derbyshire. Sorry, third place.
Oh, and that's a great dive for Isla. It's a big dive, 1.5 twists, so there's a lot going on. She's been working hard at this dive. You can see there, 1.5 twist, 1.5 somersaults, and pretty good on entry there. So again, 5.5s with a higher DD. That's a good score. That's good solid dive there.
And the girls' leader, Sophie Derbyshire, with the tough dive here for her. 2.8 degree of difficulty for this 2.5 reverse somersault.
Yeah, good from Sophie. Big dive, that's not easy at all. So reverse 2.5 somersaults. She did really well to squeeze it all in. 1, 2, just needed to kick her legs out straight a bit sooner. So you'll see here she goes back towards the water with her hands but keeps her legs bent there and then straightens them. So the judges won't like that too much, so they'll take points off. So she's going to get 5s, so it's going to be tight between her and Olivia.
Now we're back with Abraham Lee, who at the start of the 7th round, and he still is trailing Tanner Costin, surprisingly by only by a couple of points. I thought it was a bit more than that. Only 2 points behind, so it's nip and tuck, if you give the pun.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, it's going to come down to the last 2 rounds. Abraham has more degree of difficulty, but as we've seen, that doesn't always mean you're going to end up with more points because you still have to execute it.
Inward 2.5 somersault here with the tuck position off the 3-metre board, 2.7 degrees. Chance to grab the lead here in this penultimate round. Started so well.
So it's okay, it's not great. It's going to take a good dive from Tanner because it's a high degree of difficulty, but he's going to get 4s. He's just short of vertical there, so he needed to be closer to the board. That would have allowed him to spin faster and finish all the somersaults.
Yes, he's just lacking that precision he had from those first couple of dives, isn't he? Started so well, you were just about out of your chair here with excitement. Now, Tanner Costin.
Yeah, so that's good from Tanner. He's very far away from the board, as you can see him swimming back. But the dive itself was solid, so he'll probably get 6s for this. 5.5s. Abraham's was 4s, so they're going to be neck and neck.
To the girls, Olivia Fox currently in second place. She is only 6 points behind the leader, Sophie Derbyshire, so a good dive here in this 7th round. Inward 2.5 somersault, degree of difficulty 2.7. A lot of points in offing here for Olivia.
Yeah, she needed a good one there. It's solid. It might be enough. I think she's going to get probably 4s, maybe 5s.
But she was close to the board.
Yep, she was. She just didn't quite straighten out on entry.
Yeah.
So you'll see here she was sort of slightly curved in her back, and she didn't get that, she didn't nail that entry there.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see what the judges think as we turn to Isla Sella with 2.5 somersaults.
Yeah, and solid from Isla. She's had a great performance. So that's one of her bigger dives, and she's going to get 5s. She just needs to finish a bit higher and nail that entry to get higher marks, but I think she'll be happy with that. That's very solid.
And now Sophie Derbyshire in a comfortable position here. She's leading the competition, albeit only by 6 points. But with this inward 2.5 somersault, degree of difficulty 2.7, she can extend that lead going into the final round.
And she will. That was the same dive that we saw from Olivia. She did it slightly better, so she will extend her lead. 1, 2, and similar to Olivia, just didn't quite get out into that straight position on entry. So she's going to get 5.5s as we go into the final round.
So Abraham Lee with his 8th and final dive, an inward 1.5 somersault from the 1 metre board. It's come down a bit in the degree of difficulty, 2.4, but he is at the moment, well, he's only 3 points, if that's three points behind Tanner Costin. It's basically a dive off here, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
one dive,
amazing. One
dive for the big prize.
Yeah, and Abraham has the advantage with degree of difficulty at 2.4 over Tanner's 2.1. So he's going to need a good dive here. And he's produced. It's good.
Yeah.
It's not great for, for what we're looking at maybe he might need. It's just a bit too far away from the board is all. So he's going to get 6s, maybe 7s. Dive was great, just too far away from the board. So Tanner, if he can do this for 7s, I'd say he'll be in with a good chance. Yeah, it's going to be really tight. It's hard to pick.
Tanner might be back to the 3 points again.
Possibly. I mean, similar to Abraham, you can see his toes were over the end there, so good effort. He's just too far away from the board, so he needed to be much closer to the board. That would get him more height, and he'd finish the dive a bit higher.
So now to the girls, and first up is Olivia Fox, who's in second place. She's 13 points behind Sophie Derbyshire, and she's attempting here a backward 1.5 somersault in the free position with a degree of difficulty of just 2 points. So she'll need to do this well to get enough points to close that gap on the leader. Last dive for Olivia Fox from the 3 metre board.
Yeah, and it's a good one, so it's going to put the pressure on a little bit. She's going to get 7s, 6.5, 7s. Just a little bit over a vertical there, you can see in the replay, so that's why she didn't quite get the 7s.
So now Isla Sella, who's in third place, her last dive will be a forward 1.5 somersault.
Oh, and she's nailed it. What a great way to finish for Isla. That's a fantastic event for her. She should be really pleased with that.
She's 40 points behind the leader, so she's not going to close that gap, but she'll make some impression on it. But yes, technically a very good-looking dive.
Absolutely.
From start to finish. Now the leader, and it seems pretty much assured of winning this national title.
Yeah, so back 1.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists.
From Scots College in Wellington, the Wellingtonian.
Yeah, and a great way to finish. That'll secure the win for Sophie. Well done, Sophie. Good event there, and a nice battle between the two of them.
And no frills dive, just did what she had to do.
That's right.
And
performed when it counted.
So there we are. Blink of an eyelid, it's over.
And it's just like that. Yeah. So, yeah, fast, but plenty of action in that event. So while we wait for the results, we will go to a break and we'll be back with you shortly.
Funding is a real challenge. We know that a lot of schools face that ongoing, and the reality is if you go to a lower decile school in New Zealand, you are less likely to be able to afford to participate in sport.
Obviously, having come through it myself with kids and being one of those kids myself who played sport, I know how much it defined who I was. And now being able to go, I can't fix it all, but we can help and try and give to those people who are going through really tough time. It's a real privilege, but you know, for us, we want to see others get involved in it. This is not a selfish thing for Apollo. This is about how can we get, whether it's construction or other businesses, to get involved in this.
There's a lot of things that kids miss out on, and so to have businesses step up and want to be involved and to help is a game changer for schools. It really is.
Hey, sport is about more than just a game. It's about going from teammates to best mates. It's the high fives and helping hands. It's learning when to back yourself or back your buddies. It's actually being excited to get out of bed early on a Saturday. Sport is about more than just a game. That's why Caltex is proud to help fuel school sports.
Forest should never have been taken off this steep hill country that's eroding, and it makes absolute sense to afforest those hills. What we're doing here is using the exotics to help that process get established. We're looking at a managed transition process where those pines are progressively thinned as the native understory establishes. We're trying to do several things here. Soak up carbon, establish native forest, and we're trying to improve biodiversity. You're achieving an awful lot with one program of activity.
This isn't about printing. It's about better results with over 90 offices right across the country in residential, commercial and rural.
Funding is a real challenge. We know that a lot of schools face that ongoing, and the reality is if you go to a lower decile school in New Zealand, you are less likely to be able to afford to participate in sport.
Obviously, having come through it myself with kids and being one of those kids myself who played sport, I know how much it defined who I was. And now being able to go, I can't fix it all, but we can help and try and give to those people who are going through really tough time. It's a real privilege, but you know, for us, we want to see others get involved in it. This is not a selfish thing for Apollo. This is about how can we get, whether it's construction or other businesses, to get involved in this.
There's a lot of things that kids miss out on, and so to have businesses step up and want to be involved and to help is a game changer for schools. It really is.
Hey, sport is about more than just a game. It's about going from teammates to best mates. It's the high fives and helping hands. It's learning when to back yourself or back your buddies. It's actually being excited to get out of bed early on a Saturday. Sport is about more than just a game. That's why Caltex is proud to help fuel school sports.
No mai hoki mai, and welcome back to the West Auckland Aquatic Centre. Ko Brendan Telfer Aho with Liam Stone, just bringing you the concluding rights here from this first day of a very successful secondary school championship for the country's leading young divers, and we can tell you that the official result and the boys 17 and over springboard championship event was won by Abraham Lee. He took the lead with a very good dive on his first round and lost a wee bit of his form in the middle stages, but came back strongly. Well, it's to win by just 10 points, 337 to 327. So it was very close between Abraham Lee from Elam Christian College in Auckland and Tanner Costin, also from Auckland, and a pupil at Rutherford College here in West Auckland. In the girls section, the girls 17 and over, who was won fairly convincingly by Sophie Derbyshire from Scots College in Wellington, and Olivia Fox from Rangitoto College was second, 20 points behind, and Isla Sella from Dyson came home in third. That's how it finished at the end of the first day. Very successful and enjoyable day, Liam.
Yeah, it has been a great day. I mean, you know, we've seen some fantastic diving, and we were talking earlier about how the young divers are coming through, and we can see that here in this event. So it's great to see, and it's exciting for the future, and we've still got tomorrow to go. So we'll look forward to that as we see the divers dive off the platforms tomorrow. So we'll have to cast our eyes way up to the 10 metre.
Yeah. That will be spectacular. We'll be on the air again tomorrow afternoon here on Whakaata Television. And the final act today, of course, is just the medal ceremony. And congratulations there to Tanner Costin from Rutherford College, taking the silver medal. And here comes our winner.
Medal was presented by Steve Gladding, who was a coach at several Olympics and now the CEO of Auckland Diving.
Abraham Lee, our winner. Tanner Costa, our silver medalist in the boys 17 and over springboard division.
Well done, boys. That was a great battle to watch, wasn't it?
Now it's the turn of the girls. And third place in the girls 17 and over springboard was Isla Sella from Dyson School College here in Auckland with 285 points. She finished third. Second place in the silver medal goes to Olivia Fox from Rangitoto College in Auckland. 322.55 points for second place. She in the end was just on 20 points behind the actual winner. And here she is. Very convincing display from start to finish across all 8 dives. Never gave anyone a chance to get ahead of her. Sophie's choice.
Yeah, well done, Sophie. That was a great display of dives, and it was good from everyone in the event today. Good to see them all competing with each other.
Sophie Derbyshire from Scots College in Wellington, our girls 17 and over springboard diving championship winner from the National Secondary and Intermediate Schools Championships here in West Auckland. So that completes our coverage of this first day. We'll be back with more tomorrow afternoon. On behalf of Liam Stone, this is Brendan Telfer saying very good afternoon to you and thank you for your company. Hope you can join us tomorrow.